Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular board meeting of August 21st, 2018. This time, I would like all of you to stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Colwell?
Here.
Mr. Lilly's here. Mr. Roman?
Here.
Scott Ruggles?
Here.
Mike Powell?
Here.
Andrea Voorhees?
Present.
Liz Smith?
Here.
All members present.
This time, I would ask you to turn your cell phones to silent, please. We're all going to get in the habit of doing that. I'm looking for approval of the agenda.
Mr. Supervisor, I have just some comments that I'd like to make concerning an election right after public comment. That would be the only item that I have to ask to the agenda
Certainly.
to be amended tonight.
Certainly. With that, looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you.
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay. Public comment, you'll be allowed 3 minutes. These are for items that are not on the agenda. If it's on the agenda, you will have an opportunity at that time to discuss it. Again, items that are not on the agenda. You need to state your name and identify yourself for the recorder.
Sharon Keller, 4606 Grass Lake Road, White Lake Township. As trustees, the people of this township trust all of you to make decisions in the best interest of the
I
entire
don't think
community.
I can hear you over there, dear. I'm sorry.
I ask that you take your fiduciary and fiscal responsibilities to the community seriously and make sure that you please investigate all resolutions and business put before you. You should always be looking for faults and flaws. For instance, a spreadsheet that we received from the township in a response to a FOIA had many errors when we compared it with the police reports. Last month, it seems as though Rick misunderstood some things that I said. I'm not upset at all with anyone going after money to improve safety in this community. It's how Rick went about it and how he plans to misuse the money that's upsetting. Rick was apparently given to or involved in conspiring to do something immoral, illegal, or harmful. I found those words in the Oxford English Dictionary under conniving, and that's exactly what he said he did in May when he was in Lansing to obtain money for our community, and that reflects quite poorly on this community. He also mentioned socialism, I'm not sure why, and Margaret Thatcher. So I'll say that socialist propagandist George Bernard Shaw thought socialism, when simplified, is the transforming of private property into public property, and Karl Marx used the taking of private property for public use to define communism. I'm going to ask that the trustees please keep that in mind when in the future you may hear obtaining right-of-way and or condemnation. I trust that you as I stand on democracy and believe in the rights of property ownership. Rick wants money for Bogey Lake Road at Cooley and Union and Elizabeth. I don't object to that at all, but last month I simply asked why chase it when he already had obtained $1.5 million in grants, though questionably obtained. His response didn't answer the question, though he wasn't obligated to. Rick, you said that you're the public safety director. If you were truly concerned with public safety in this community, it seems you would obtain maps of the township's incidents to locate the most dangerous places, and then you and the board would thoroughly read all the incident reports and collectively determine if something could be done to prevent future injury. I'm hoping that I can trust you, the trustees, to do what's right by all of the citizens in this township, not just those on Rick's friends and family plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? I'm now closing public comment. Going to item 6, consent agenda. Oh, I beg your pardon. Mr. Lilly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Lilly, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on a well-run election. You had a few obstacles there, but
As many of you know that probably read the newspaper, that a lot of our Oakland County communities experienced a ballot shortage during this last election cycle. And it is very true that the ballots for both the primary elections and the general elections are ordered by the Oakland County Clerk's Office. We have little input in regards to how many of those ballots are issued, but I know a lot of the clerks are probably far more upset than we are in White Lake, because I'm not aware of anyone that was inconvenienced by a shortage of ballots, at least at the precincts that I were there. And if somebody was there and probably wanted to vote and be out of there in 3 minutes, you may have very well experienced that, but I'm not aware of any inconveniences other than that. So I would like to read into the records just to clarify, even though the Oakland County clerks are very united against the Oakland County Clerk's Office because of the shortage and the inconveniences that they were caused for them. However, I got to say, from my particular standpoint, I was down at the Oakland County at least 3 times to pick up ballots, and during the later on in the evening, about 5:30, it had reported that the Oakland County Clerk's Office had run out of paper, so they were unable to print, and we and my staff began cutting paper to ballot size and copying those. So I'm not aware of anybody that was convenient. So I'm in a little bit different position, even though that I support the Oakland County Clerks Association. I'm not going to lash out at the clerk's office at Oakland County because of their maybe lack of some foresight for this election. But I got to say, the only way that this problem is going to be resolved is either the local clerks take responsibility and order their own ballots, and will be at the expense of local township, or responsibility can lay within the Oakland County Clerk's Office to pressure their county commission to provide more money to provide more ballots for all the local communities. So personally, I don't feel that this is a big need for a county-wide investigation. It's just a matter of who's going to pay for the additional ballots. And I've got to say, over the experience of my 12 years conducting elections, that many times we have destroyed a great amount of ballots that were not used. So it's kind of, but I'd like to read this into the record anyway. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone involved in the 2018 primary election. The response from the voters far exceeded estimates for ballots ordered by Oakland County for this primary. In addition, this is the first time White Lake voters had an opportunity to see all the new election equipment. It has taken months of preparation and many hours to make operational manuals and to organize and test the new election equipment. The clerk's staff has spent many long days training election inspectors on new equipment in preparation for Election Day. On Election Day, August 7th, 2018, at 3:30 in the afternoon, our office was notified that some precincts could have a problem with the amount of ballots issued and the steady flow of voters. We all went into the crisis mode over the shortage of ballots. At least 3 trips were made to Oakland County elections for more ballots, and at 5:30, Oakland County ran short of paper stock to process. Back at the office, we began copying ballots using the county's test ballots, and our position is do not run short of ballots, and our host staff agreed. While we were doing everything possible to make every vote count, little did we know that other local Oakland County communities were experiencing the same problems. This was our problem, but the good side of the story is the voter turned out far exceeded the expectations, and this is a great thing. I want to thank the voters for your patience and understanding that made our Election Day a success. Our team of election inspectors includes senior citizens, high school and college graduates, and residents who took the day off work at the polls. Thank you again for a long day at the precinct to serve our residents. You started at 6 a.m. and didn't leave the clerk's office after 10 p.m. that evening. You made us proud and thankful for your dedication to be part of our election team. To our setup and teardown crew, thank you for having the precincts ready and open on Election Day. You served as runners, delivering supplies and information to precincts all day long. To our team at the Township office, thank you for your support and use of your employees on Election Day. To members of our police and fire departments for your assistance, in particular Chief Keller for supervising both police and fire personnel for assisting voters crossing the street at White Lakes Oak Golf Course. Actually, White Lake Oaks had 2 precincts for this primary election. The election workers indicated that many people had expressed their thanks for their safety and wish to thank you also. To Joe Rizal, Oakland County Elections, for all your help and assistance to process ballots, dedication to your job, and the many hours you have spent training and directing all the Oakland County clerks. Thank you, Joe. Lastly, I want to thank my staff at the clerk's office. Your patience, dedication, and your experience makes the election process look easy, but we all know that it can both be rewarding, time-consuming, long hours, lots of planning, and continually looking ahead. This election cycle was almost 2 continuous months of preparation. Sometimes those weeks and months wear on our patience and can be emotionally draining. I had one employee that kind of felt personally responsible for all of this, but I'll take that on my shoulders. Sometimes minor difficulties and inconvenience become personal because we feel we could have done more to avoid situations or we could have done better. The truth of the matter is each election cycle brings changes and personal sacrifices, and we have always learned from those. The important part is we function as a team and everybody has a role. Now the 2018 primary election is over, and we now begin to prepare for November's general election. We will remember and not forget what we need to do better and improve. Do not forget your dedication to your job and professionalism you display every day and cannot be questioned. As a team leader and clerk, I take full responsibility for all the matters concerning elections and any other functions within the clerk's office, and will do whatever it takes to make the team better. And like I said at the very beginning, I know a lot of the municipalities are really upset and they're probably taking a lot of heat from their constituents for running short. But this is not a matter of that we need a national investigation of how to fix the problem. It's just a matter of where the money resources are going to come in order to have enough ballots available for primary elections. During general elections, always we order 100% of the registered voters, and typically we have ballots left over. But I wanted to read that into the records because I don't feel that we were that inconvenienced by the county, and particularly from Joe Rizal. Spends a lot of time in training and takes a lot of responsibility for the county clerk. So I want to say kudos, and we're not going to be part of investigation of what happened. It's the matter is simple to resolve, and I hope will be resolved quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lilly. Moving on to item 6, the consent agenda, which is the list of bills, revenues, and expenses. Clerk? Any comment on the consent agenda?
No comments. There's no new list of bills, so everything's as in the packet.
Looking for a motion?
Mr. Supervisor,
Yes.
motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion to approve. Looking for support? Looking for support?
Support?
Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Going on to minutes. 7A, approval of the regular board meeting of July 17th, 2018. Any question on the minutes?
I actually found an error, and I apologize for not responding back. On section E, the resolution for 18021 is Jean-Philippe Lowe, Jean.
Anything else? Give everybody a minute. Yes, Mr. Rome?
Make a motion to approve the board minutes as amended from July 17th, 2018.
Motion to approve is amended. Looking for support?
I'll support that.
Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on to item 7B, the approval of the minutes of special board meeting August 8th, 2018.
Make a motion to approve the special board meeting minutes from August 8th, 2018.
A motion, looking for support?
Support.
Motion support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on to resolutions. Chief, Resolution 18-023. Approve agreements for the Oakland County net overtime agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Mr. Lilly, I appreciate the kind words in the public comment. That was very nice. This is an agreement we've had for several years with NET and Oakland County. And it's asking, the agreement says they will reimburse us $4,200 for overtime for HIDA, which is high intensity drug trafficking area. And they're going to reimburse us $4,200 for all the overtime that our NET officer works in the crime areas.
Very good. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chief
Powell.
Keller,
Yes.
can you tell me approximately how many hours a week the deputy assigned to this net program works for the program versus the township?
It ranges from, there's no set net officer. It's different every pay period because he doesn't know what he's doing from pay period to pay period. The $4,200 and the other grant that we got that you guys approved several board meetings ago cover about half of the overtime. So he works between 14 and 20 hours of overtime per pay period. And at least half of that is covered by these two grants that you approved. Usually these grants come together. It's just there was a time differential that they couldn't put them together. Usually last year and the year before, I believe they were put together in the same motion, but it's different. So it covers quite a bit.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Okay, any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 18023, resolution to approve agreements with Oakland County net overtime agreements with the Charter Township of White Lake.
I have a motion approved, looking for support.
I'll support that.
Support from Andrea. Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you,
8B,
sir.
Resolution 18-024, confirm special reassessment role for SID Castlewood sewer main extension. Anything you want to talk about? Janine?
I gave you everything.
You gave me everything. Yeah, it's here.
You want me to review it?
Yeah, we'll just kind of go over it. Aaron, I'm going to call on you a little bit for this too. Oops. We've gone to the digital age, folks, and we're just not all used to it yet, so bear with us.
I can read the memo if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead and read that out. We're having difficulty.
Basically,
Should she, I'm sorry, should she go to a mic?
Yeah, why don't you go to the microphone?
I have such a booming voice.
Yes.
So basically, the Castlewood SAD had a shortfall. It comes to approximately, I only brought the memo with me, but it was a 7% increase in the assessments.
Approximately 36,000.
Thank you. Law requires that we reassess the residents, and because it was under 10%, it does not require hearings. But we didn't notice all the residents to let them know that there would be a reassessment on their property.
So that's spread out over 100 or 102 properties?
101.
101 properties, so that's
54.
354 over the life expectancy of that, which was 10 years, so that's roughly
8 years left.
8
8
years.
years
Yeah, there's
left,
8
I beg
years
your
left.
pardon, that's right. Okay. All right, any questions from the board members? Any questions from the public? And you're going to have to stand and be identified, and you really should come over to the microphone. Only because the camera can't pick up your voice, sir.
Ralph Keller, 4606 Grass Lake Road. Just a quick question. So you were off 8% by your estimate. How much is it going to cost?
7%.
7%. Okay, that's it.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Joe Cedar, 1296 Castlewood. Question I have is, how can you come back 2 years later after the contract has been signed and we paid for it, and you're coming back 2 years later and saying it's going to be another $350, $400? I don't understand that.
Well,
I mean, if I bought a car and it cost me $25,000, 2 years later the guy's coming back and saying, well, it's another $500.
Well, number one, it's not quite that simple. November 2017 was the last contractor invoice that went out, okay?
Okay.
And we had some internal shortage of personnel here in our accounting department for several months because one of our staff was out. So we fell behind in some of our paperwork to catch up to this stuff. We also had an audit, which was the township audit. So it's acute shortage of personnel here. We don't have as much staff as we need sometimes to do the things we need to do. And we also had some disputed invoices that had to be resolved to make sure that it was done in the best interest of that district.
Okay, but if
And
the-
that time, ergo, took time for that process to go through, and that's why we're coming back at this time.
well, if the contractor gave you a price, that's what I don't understand. They gave you a price to do the work. They
There were
finished the work.
there were changes along the way. There was changes in engineering costs because of obstructions and difficulties in placing one particular structure, and there was other changes along the way that add to the cost of the project. And in general, I don't believe there's enough cost put in there for the overall engineering cost of that project.
Well, my understanding is we're getting charged another $50 a month or a year for 8 years. I mean, $350, you're charging us interest along with that. I don't understand that either. Why are we getting slapped with interest?
I work by what the law is written. It is how the state law is written for our special assessment districts. Mr. Roman, you care to
Right.
elaborate?
It's Michigan law, it's not township law.
Yeah, Joe, it's state law that requires us to reassess. I wish we could have done it sooner too, but I think Rick hit on the bullet points. By the time we got the last invoice from the major contractor, that was November of 17. And then there was a check I wouldn't sign because I wasn't comfortable with it. That was a disputed invoice. And then really to complicate the whole thing, one of our two accountants was really sick and was out for a number of months, resulting in us, we even actually delayed our audit, I think for the first time since
Ever.
I've been here.
Yeah.
Our accounting department got swamped and way backed up. But this reassessment is law, and I'm going to give this to you if you want to share it. Yeah.
Mr. Powell.
I can also comment, because I'm in the industry, that these projects are done on a unit price basis. Until the project is totally done, you don't know how many units have been used during that process. And so it takes a great deal of counting after the work is all done and everything's completed to justify precisely what work was done. It's not a contractor saying, I'm buying this lump sum worth of stuff, because we can't hold him responsible for what he might find underground and precisely the length of sewer and all of those things. So it's done on a unit price basis, and we don't add those up until after the project's all done. So it's a little different than buying a car.
Okay, so it's surveyed. They know how much material they need. It's the extra costs that come into effect. Is that what you're saying? What they find under the ground,
That's correct.
and that's what we're getting charged for.
That's correct.
So would this be the last time we get charged for this, or 2 years later we're going to get charged again?
This closes this out.
Okay.
We are required by law to go back, audit, reassess if necessary. And I know that you folks have spent a lot of money
Yes, we did.
to do this, but it has vastly improved every home and all the property values in that area.
Oh, I agree,
More than
but
you've
it was
invested.
very expensive, like
Yeah.
you said, very expensive.
And we, as a board, and I will tell you that Mr. Potter, Mr. Powell, and myself, and them probably more than me, because of their engineering and knowledge, watchdog this stuff very closely to make sure that we are getting our money's worth. And our engineering firm is pretty darn good, but we had a structure there that went in that had to be taken out, and you had to go back and almost reinvent the wheel in one area because that ground was so bad, and I won't get all of it. I'll be happy to discuss it with you at any time. But, and it caused a lot of aggravation and a lot of delay. So, and this is just a result, and the cost is minimal. Although it is a cost,
Right.
it is minimal, and we try to keep it as minimal as we could. So,
Okay. Thank you.
any other questions on
Mr.
Castlewood?
Supervisor, I'm sorry that this happened to the residents involved, and I know it seems unfair. But I did bring along some information if anyone's interested afterwards from MTA. You guys can look up this as well and Google it. It's Michigan law, and it explains our obligation in a SAD. So if anyone's interested, I have this afterwards. Thank you.
Okay.
So,
My name is Jessica Wood. I'm at 1330 Castlewood. I just had a question on two of the documents I received from the township. On the estimate, the original estimate, it states there's 103 parcels involved, and the assessor just stated 101. So what is the correct number?
I believe it's 101
So
because,
101.
because there was a conjoined, I believe a conjoined parcel or something was.
No, there were two parcels that were exempted out during the whole process in the
Okay.
beginning because they're not buildable.
Right, non-buildable lots.
We can't charge people that.
Okay, I understand that, but I just wanted to know why it was different from what we were told before.
That was 2 years ago.
Okay.
It changed to-
And then my other question is the SAD amount was 512,859 on the estimate, and on the actual cost, it says the SAD is 502,901. Why is that a $10,000 difference?
Hang on, let me get back to that. I don't have all of the supporting documents in front of me, but I do know that, again, this has been internally audited, and I'd be happy to provide you any information that you want. And these are the results of from the assessor's office, the final assessing numbers. I'm not going to tell you that I don't have everything right here in my screen, the exact number to.
You're not gonna find the difference,
I don't
right,
think
between
I
the
am.
original estimate and the final.
Yeah.
You'd
I'll tell you that
have to go line by line.
at
Yeah.
one point in time, Elaine had 512, because some amount that was right around there. But she was using, I'm sorry.
Speak up, Janine. The original, yeah, we went from 502,901 to 538,661.
The 512,000 that Elaine had that she may have shared with people was an incorrect amount.
Was an incorrect amount.
And I had to give her the correct amount of 502.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that answers that question.
Okay. Those,
The correct amount was 502 initially, and then the increase was to 538.
538.
Yeah, 538 and some change, so.
okay. I just felt that there were some discrepancies in some of the paperwork, and just trying to clarify as to what the amount
Yeah,
is.
there's, all the audit sheets are available to look at if you have a curiosity and you'd like to look at them. It's all public record.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, turning back over to the board. Any questions from the board?
I just have one, certainly, and the law, as what people have quoted, states that only those parties that are benefited by the special assessment district can be charged. It's really not permissible and not proper, quite frankly, for someone in a totally different area of the township, if we were to use their monies to defer costs to the benefiting parties there in Castlewood. So that's why the law reads very explicitly the way it does, and it says the township shall pass those costs on to the homeowner. So we really don't have an option.
Yes, sir.
Al Kovac, 1329 Castlewood. Is there any way we can pay it off completely rather than being assessed for 8 years?
Oh,
Yes.
sure, yeah.
Yes.
That's just
So-
in the, that's for a matter of convenience for folks. It goes back with the original terms and conditions.
So we
If you
would
want,
come into the,
just go ahead and pay for it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So it's just put out there as part of the original agreement that if somebody wanted to put overtime, they could. Okay, they have that option. Any other questions? Okay, back to the board. Any other board members? Okay, looking for a motion for the resolution.
Supervisor,
Mr.
motion
Holman.
to approve Resolution 18-024 to confirm the special reassessment role for SAD Castlewood Sewer Main Extension.
I have a motion for 18-024.
Support.
And I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. Thanks for your understanding. I realize that it is an additional cost, but again, this township has worked very hard to provide some services that were really, really tricky to get in there. And at one point in time, we almost lost a manhole over there. So literally almost lost the structure because of the complications. 8C, Resolution 18-027, Cranberry Lake Goose Roundup. Well, is it a goose or a duck or a swan or a rabbit? What are we rounding up? So we had this discussion last month. Mr. Clerk, please go ahead. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
This was request one of our residents at Cranberry Lake to have a 5-year goose roundup permit. As we had discussed at the previous board meeting, that our resolution is required by the DEQ in order to obtain a permit and to be given the training and the restrictions of the DEQ of what they can do and what they can't do.
Right. So this in itself is not the permit, it's just authorizing this group to proceed to acquire a permit. So any questions from the residents? Okay, board? And it is a goose. All right.
It's interchangeable in here.
I know. Bringing it up.
I'll make a motion to grant a 5-year goose roundup permit.
Resolution 18-027. We have motion, looking for support?
Technically speaking, I don't think we're granting the permit, we're
Right.
Authorization.
Authorizing the resolution.
For application of permit. I have motion, support, all in favor?
Aye,
Who supported?
I did.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to 9A, new business. First reading of the Mojave Cantina rezoning request.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Neill.
Hi. This is good. How are you?
Good.
Mojave Cantina is rezoning file 18-013. The owner, Mr. Phil Sapatoris, is requesting that the township rezone his property from LB local business to GB general business. On July 19th, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the proposed rezoning request after holding the required public hearing. In your packet, you will see the draft minutes from that meeting as well as a review letter recommending the rezoning and the public hearing notice and application. The main reason for the request is that he intends in that strip center, which is his own local business, to open a restaurant called Mojave Cantina and intends to have a bar within the restaurant, and local business does not allow for the sale of alcohol on premise, so he's required to rezone it if he wants to have a bar or sell alcohol at his establishment. So that is his plan, and tonight is just the first reading of the two that are required, so request that this be moved along to second reading for your consideration at the next meeting.
Very good. And welcomed to the community, another restaurant. That would be a great thing. We'd love to see you and be successful. Any questions from the board?
Question, Mr. O'Neill. Does this come, I know we have our second reading.
Yes.
But does the site plan itself, since this is an existing building, does the site plan itself come back to the board?
It's an excellent question. The site obviously is has been up and in operation for decades now, and the changes that are needed physically to the site are minor enough in scope to where the staff has decided to treat this one as an administrative site plan, and Mr. Sapatoris is aware that that being said, he's just got to follow all the requirements of the ordinance. If not, it would have to potentially go to the zoning board of appeals, or may come through the process if a special land use is required, at least to some extent. But he is showing a site plan, or has turned in a site plan that shows all the existing conditions and some of the other things that any new site would be required to provide, which would be resurfacing and striping the parking lot to show the adequate size of space, or I should say space size, as well as the pathway that's required along M59. Some landscaping will need to be restored on the site, things like that. So we're working through that process with him administratively, with all the departments and consultants that are involved. And I believe he's working with Aaron pretty closely on some of the utility connections that will be required as well, because of the kind of operation that he intends to undertake out there. So
Okay,
he was
I was-
previously on septic and well, and we'll have to connect at least to sewer at this point.
Right, okay, because I was wondering, marginal access lanes would be important. Those businesses along in there, I know there's one business owner who kind of refuses to allow marginal access lane across his properties, but certainly as part of this approval, we should have this product or this development propose a marginal access lane to each side. And then hopefully he does such a great business that he exceeds his parking allotment on the site. And I didn't know whether or not there were any alternative ideas as to where he might build additional parking if in fact he does exceed the parking that's currently exists.
Well, his site, I've got two mice here, so let me use this one. The existing site has about 3 acres of area. There's quite a bit of vegetation to the south.
Right.
And I have a, you know what, I can actually probably just, what's the address here?
9135.
Thank you, Aaron.
And that property to the south is identified as a buffer between the residential, and just wanted to make sure that typically a restaurant draws a great deal more than businesses do, and so I wanted to make sure that he didn't outgrow the site too quickly.
Right. His only real option, and this is, I'm having some issues here with all this paperwork here. So I mean, he could potentially put some employee parking back here. What I would say though is there's quite a buffer back here between him and the residential, so we would be hesitant to propose that he eliminate any of this vegetation, because if he were to do so, he'd be tasked with building a berm and a wall and re-vegetating it. But I guess he could possibly find some additional parking back here for employees. But I think he's going to have to try to either acquire additional property or live within the parking he has on site. So
Very difficult to do when you have a booming business, to have people turned away because they can't get in. So it looks as though there might be room to the south, while maintaining still somewhat of a buffer strip there.
right. I mean, if you look back here, you see the size of a standard parking space. I would see you could probably put a single row across here and add, maybe 15, 18 parking spaces, just kind of a guess. So there would be some potential there. And to your point about marginal access or cross access, he is aware of that. And these are the areas you're talking about. He currently has the ability to cross access. This is the person who will not allow cross access from Tim Hortons, though Tim Hortons has signed their half of the agreement. So that is something that is going to be addressed through this process, and will eventually hopefully allow for cross access all the way through here, so that people aren't having to go use M59 to go to the next building down, which is a safety issue and a traffic flow issue. So
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill.
sure.
Any other questions to the board members? Mr. O'Neill, you're looking to move this on to second?
If you are so inclined, yes, please.
I'm looking for a motion to move on to second.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that we move the reading of the rezoning to the second reading for file number 18-013.
I have a motion to move 18-013 to second read. Looking for support?
Support.
I have motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Chief, request to purchase police vehicles. You're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. It's that time of year again, where
Is
we
this every year?
Every year.
Like
every year
Christmas.
we rotate our vehicles out every 3 years because of the capacity.
And the public, and I'm only saying that kind of tongue in cheek, they have to realize those cars are on the road 24/7, constantly. You drive your car to work, sits there, come home, sits there. These things, this is their mobile office.
Yes.
So it's a tool in the box, and that's why we need them. So,
And we
go ahead,
change-
Chief, sorry.
and we change them out every 3 years because of that process. When vehicles get to between 70, 80, 90,000, they start breaking down, and it costs more to fix them than to buy a new vehicle. It's better to buy new vehicles to save on the costs. So again, we went with 3 vendors. On Gorno Ford was the cheapest at $27,500 a piece. And then again, we went to outfit the vehicles, which is expensive as well. And we put out bids, and we got 3 back, and AWG 911 out of Wixom came in at just under $9,000 per vehicle. And then the graphics, which is Eagle Graphics, we chose, which is out of Waterford. And that total for the 3 cars is just over $2,500. And this is, it's going to be for 3 police utility vehicles. They're all going to be patrol vehicles, no administrative vehicles this year.
Black?
Black. Yep, they're going to look exactly like they did from the previous year.
Very good. Any questions from any of the board members? Yes, Mr. Ruggles.
Chief, did you say AWT 911 or ABS storage for the outfitting?
AWT 911, because they gave us, we requested certain things in the request bid, and while ABS storage was cheaper, it's because they didn't fill out the form correctly. So they gave us improper information.
How many cars do you have now total? I don't know that.
We have 10 total.
10?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mr. Powell.
Chief, I just wanted to thank you very much for the detailed presentation and all the data that you presented us. You explained it very well, and you provided us all the background information, so it was very complete, and I wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, any questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Lilly?
Make a motion to approve the 2018 request for the purchase of police vehicles not to exceed $112,000.
I have a
Support
motion.
that.
Looking for perhaps support down the end. Ms. Smith, motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item is a cost participation agreement, which is for a preliminary engineering study to be done for a potential improvement on Grass Lake Road from where the pavement ends just east of Ormond to Steeple Hill Drive. An agreement that the township would like to enter into with the county, where the county will enter into a design stage to determine the practicality and ultimately the final cost and best course of action for that particular piece of road. This is an agreement that is made between the township and the county. However, the monies that are coming for this and any potential improvement up unto the price of $1,500,000 is being provided by 2 grants that were acquired out of Lansing. One is an MEDC grant, I think I said that right, and the other is an MDOT grant. And those grants are the extent of the involvement financially of the township. So this is a road improvement project. And what that means is that the best course of action will be determined by this engineering study as to how to improve that road. The county and the county alone is the owner and maintainer of the roads, period. The township does not own any roads. They will make the decisions and proceed on that course upon their engineering study results. This is only and only an engineering study cost of, again, which is paid for by the grants. Questions from the board? Mr. Roman.
Mr. Supervisor, in reading through this agreement, it's a little bit misleading. It reads as if the township has to put up its own money. But my understanding is the money that the township would be putting up would be the grant money that we receive, correct? So we're not looking at using general fund money for this project. Okay, thank you.
These are two drafts right here. One is a special legislative grant payment request, and the other is a request for payment for the MEDC, Michigan Department of Transportation. So that's the information that I have. Yes, Council.
So, just so that the board members are aware, I did have an opportunity to review it. I had some concerns, some requested changes, which I submitted to Corporation Counsel for the Road Commission. She's agreed with some of the changes I requested, but has not yet sent a revised version of this agreement. So, if you want to, I can walk you through the changes I asked her for, what she said yes to, what she said no to, or you could simply authorize the supervisor to execute this agreement once we've negotiated the terms as best we can, keeping in mind this is the county.
Yeah, and usually the county doesn't like to change
No, they
their,
don't like to change
their
anything.
documents.
They're agreeing
surprised
to
they're
some of
changing
my
anyway.
requested changes, some they aren't, but at least it's getting us closer.
I would prefer to know what they've agreed to, if you can walk us through that.
One of the things I asked them to do was put in here that essentially requiring the county to comply with any of the requirements the township has to comply with in the grant. They refused to put that in there, but they did agree to allow the township to terminate this agreement if the MDEC terminates the grant. So it was some middle ground we were able to reach. I also asked them to include a provision that requires the plans and specification are subject to township's approval. She agreed to add that in there as well. I wanted a provision in here that provides a completion date for the design work. The reason being, you're bound by certain deadlines in the grant, and the agreement you enter into with the county, I felt, should also include a deadline so you meet the deadlines of the grant, also trying to keep in line with the grant. I did also ask that they put some language in there requiring, general, that they will comply with industry standards and good work product, and of course the county said we always do that, and I said, well, they're going to put some language in there saying that they will, their standards will be essentially industry standards.
Thank you, Council. Mr. Powell.
I appreciate that, Counselor, because my experience with the Road Commission is you do it their way or hit the highway, and I'm not convinced that this board will agree with some of the design parameters that the Road Commission requests. And so I'm glad that we are going to have the ability to review the requested design.
We'll have the option to decide what's in the best interest of the township.
I should also note that one of my concerns was really the title. It's called a cost participation agreement, but it didn't seem to me that they were participating. And so I did ask her to make it a little bit more, accurate as to what this actually is. And so I haven't seen her revised draft yet, but I wanted to bring this to your attention so that you don't simply approve the one in front of you, knowing that they're agreeing to make those changes.
Correct. I'm going to.
Can we include in here somewhere where the funds are coming from, that they're coming from the MEDC and MDOT grant? Just to protect the record, we all know that, but this has caused some confusion and upset for residents. So any resident going back and looking at this in our minutes, I'd like that clarified.
And the minutes of previous meetings also reflect this, so that there was monies coming from grants.
But this is the document that matters.
Correct.
So I
And
prefer
Lisa
it to
and
here.
I will go over this, and when we get it in process, and
We We could certainly ask them to, Liz, but they're taking the position that you're hiring us to do a job, and this is what we have everyone sign, and this is what it is. We're working with you as best we can, but it is what it is. You want to hire someone else? Hire someone else. So we could certainly ask them, but I feel like I'm already getting more than I expected, frankly. But we can certainly ask them to include that language. Like I said, I wanted them to put language in here that says they'll comply with the language of the grant.
Mhm.
And they said this is not what we do.
Okay, well, I'd appreciate you asking. Thank you.
I have one more question before we open it. That being said, does the grant prohibit the township engineer from doing the study versus the road commission doing the study?
Not specifically at this time, but there is a certain concern from the county that obviously they have certain standards and they want to meet those standards.
Certainly permits would be needed to do any work in the road right-of-way, but sometimes the county demands more than what might be necessary, put it that way.
I understand that, but one of the things that I found that and you will also agree that you can design something in private industry, send it into the government, and then it goes through the round circle carousel of red tape.
Right.
When it's designed by the county, it's going to be designed one time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, if we did that, if we hired a private firm, we sent it to the county, wouldn't they just change it how they wanted it anyways?
Exactly.
They do, but at least they then request it, and we can make a decision if that makes sense. But we'll just respond differently this time than being direct, so, okay.
Very good. Any other board members? Call to the public. You'll need to come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Mr. Supervisor, before they start, I think we should mention to the public that this is slated by Road Commission for 2019.
Correct. It's a little late in the season right now.
Hi, good evening. My name is Chris Bertoya. Quick question. If this study is not gone forward, what would happen to the grant money? Would it be used for another road in another area?
The monies are to be utilized for this. I would have to probably go back through a process and see if I could get it used someplace else. I can't answer that.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then I just wanted to voice our support for proceeding with this. We live in the area and we think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Okay.
3 minutes on.
Yeah, you better put the timer on.
No, I wrote it down, so I won't go long. My name's Mike Kowal. I'm your state senator. I also happen to live in one of the subdivisions in question. This situation started in the mid-'90s, and that's when Keith Moore came to the township, and he wanted to develop Cumberland subdivision. I was chairman of the planning commission at that time and had no intentions of moving into that sub. But we knew at that point in time that Grass Lake Road needed to be improved because it was nothing more than a wagon trail that I think led to one of the Brendels houses where they drive those big trucks up and down all the time. But if some of you, I think Mike, I don't know if you were on the board or not, but when we first came in, we had to do an agreement with the county, tri-party funds.
Yes.
And it happened to be the intersection of Grass Lake Road and Ormond.
Yes.
By that time, I was already living in a subdivision, and I was still in the state house. And the project went on, then I became supervisor here in the township, and I got blamed for that. So I'll take it. Bonnie Elliott was the one that set it all in motion. And the phase 2 was to finish it up. And that's what we couldn't do because of the lack of funding. And if you all remember, we had that little thing called the Granholm years with a recession, and there was no money available at all. I've long been asking the county and the state to finish the road up, fix the dust problems, the runoff into the wetlands, which are under stress right now and in the process of dying. Fix the sight line for the school buses, fix the sight line for cars, fix the drainage is the biggest problem, and generally just make it safer for all the residents that use that road every day. I've procured funding for many roads in the state and the county and the township, and I'm proud of all the projects that I've done. And I know there's been some accusations being thrown around about underhanded and backhanded and sliding around the back door. I would strongly recommend that those type of statements be guarded, because there's ramifications from that. And I'm going to continue through the end of the year doing the same thing. I'm going to continue working on projects to make this state better. I'm proud to announce that we have, coming into this position in 2010, we had enough money to run the state for 35 minutes. State of 10 million people, we had 35 minutes worth of money. Today we have 1.5 billion in our rainy day fund. And we just found out we have another additional $350 million that's made available for grants and projects like these. And being in a position that I'm in, when I see these grants come, I apply for them. Some I get, some I don't. So if anybody wants to ask me any questions, which I've never been approached by anyone asking any questions about this, I had to find out on Facebook when I was being accused of doing everything except robbing the great train robbery. But I'm very available. My cell phone number's online. You know where I live. Come and talk to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We support you, Mike.
Any other persons of call to the public? This gentleman right here.
Good evening, Trustee Board. My name is Bob Goslin, and I reside at 2377
Can you
Cumberland.
get a little closer to the microphone?
How about that? I reside at 2377 Cumberland.
I didn't get your last name, sir.
Bob Goslin. And I'm for the paving of this. Of course, Mike Colwell talked about safety, and these are a lot of the issues that we've always talked about, and potholes and the buses and so forth, two cars fitting in that road sometimes. When you got potholes, you veer to the left, and all of a sudden you see a car coming, so you have to pothole it back onto the right side and miss your oncoming. We got dust, mud, God forbid accidents or even death. But when you deal with a special assessment district, which this is not on the conversation, but there's only 7 houses on that road, and each special assessment person would have to endure $235,000 under another system. Fortunately, we got these grants coming from the state, and that's what Mr. Colwell's for. You folks are for, people that go to Washington, D.C. They're there to bring back troubled area, money for troubled areas. And I commend him and any of you, or even people from D.C. that will bring grant money back. This is a big improvement for the area. And I do know that there was some other projects, I guess, part of this package that they put together in Lansing. And so I commend them for getting this money, because all over the state of Michigan there's senators and representatives that go fishing for money and grants all the time. And it's fortunate that we do have something like this that will make this a safer road to ingress and egress out of. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Potter, you got a story you want to tell?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Should I go to the microphone?
Yeah, go ahead. Those of you who may not know Aaron is our Department of Public Services Director, which means he travels these roads all over the township. I'm going to say not quite as much as the police do, but pretty darn close.
Probably accurate, not quite as much as the police. So I have been down Grass Lake Road in that direction a total of 1 time since I started here at the township. We have no water or sewer assets down that far on Grass Lake Road at this time. So I really don't have a lot of reason to get down there, and due to time stresses that we've talked about previously, there isn't really a lot of time for myself or my staff to drive around and sightsee. Mr. Supervisor asked me to check that section of the road out so that I was familiar with what we were talking about here. So one day when my wife and my kids and I were heading out in that direction to go to a soccer match, we stopped out at, or we took some back roads out that way and drove down that section of road. At first I had a hard time finding where we were even talking about till I started to get to the bends. And then, sure enough, as I was cresting the hill and going over the first curve, I almost got hit head on by somebody else trying to avoid a pothole. So that's been my experience with it. As I stated, for what it's worth, I've been down there a total of one time, but
Great first impression, isn't it?
the odds are not good right now for me.
That can be daily.
So, yeah, I can imagine.
A couple times daily.
Yeah. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. That's from Aaron. It was totally unrehearsed. I just asked him because he is our DPS director, that his opinion was important to this township and all the members of this board. He has a very good understanding of how things work civilly, and he understands the safety aspect of it also. So, and like I said, that was completely unrehearsed, and when I ran into him a couple days later, he says, that road's bad. And I said, yeah. So, any other members like to say something? Yes, dear.
I'm Julie Fentner. I live on Grass Lake at 5000 Grass Lake Road, which, by the way, I went out of my way, Mr. Gowal, to, on my Facebook post, say I did not want it to get into a political person bashing thing, because I saw that. I had no interest in that. I have lived there for over 18 years. I don't remember how many years ago that you all tried to pave it before. At that time, we were all sent notifications that this was an issue that was being brought up and this was something that you were interested in. And so we were all given equal opportunity to sit down and to talk about it. Are the potholes bad? Yes. But the speed limit on that road is horrendous. The drivers, if they would slow their booties down, it would be a lot safer. You wouldn't lose as many car parts in the potholes. And I have a couple of questions. That first subdivision, not Cumberland, but when you're traveling east, the first subdivision on the left-hand side, they have paved roads. And they're full of potholes, and their roads are horrendous. At least on our dirt road, if we all complain enough, they're going to come and they're going to grade it, and at least it will improve a little bit. Once it's pavement, I'd like to know who then is going to maintain that pavement? Because if we have some of the same issues with runoff and whatnot, we're going to end up with as many potholes and as many nastiness on the road once it's paved that we do once it's dirt. But it's not fixable once it's paved with a grader. Then my other question is that the whole Castlewood over 7% thing causes me a little concern. Could you just clarify for me, if you all approve this, you say it's being paid for by grant money, but what happens if there's not enough money? Who then foots the bill for the money that you need to pay for additional things? Because I don't know that. I don't understand why the rest of us on Grass Lake weren't notified and given the opportunity. I feel like this is a whole rush. And you're having this meeting to approve having this survey done. Yet I have spoken via email with the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality and with the Road Commission of Oakland County, and Matt Gilpert, who's the civil engineer for the Road Commission for Oakland County, told me this is a township-led project and they secured the funding to pave Grass Lake Road. And he has said in here, Road Commission Oakland County is currently working on a preliminary plan balancing alignment options with safety concerns, costs, and environmental impacts, which would lead me to believe they're already working on this
No,
study.
they're referring to this specific request right here.
So they're not working on it.
They're working partially on it, but the engineering end of it, to see the feasibility of it, is what this is actually about.
Okay, and how is it already slated for 2019 and nobody is even talked to? I get that Cumberland Valley and Steeple Hill, they're well aware of this, but this only a few weeks ago was the first time I heard of it. And that's why, Mr. Colwell, people are questioning why this seems to be such a hush-hush thing.
It's not hush-hush. This has been at the board meeting. It's been on, and we've talked about this before. We talked at 1 or 2 board meetings of improving the process of going after the grant money. It was all well above board and talked about. There's no initial cost to the individuals on that road. We haven't gone to that level yet. When we know what direction we're ultimately going to go in, we're going to have some public input to see just what everybody thinks of the process and how it may affect certain persons or not, and what the feasibility of all this is. I don't know what their engineering is going to reveal. Mr. Powell can explain to you in Inganese, as I call it, some of the peculiarities in the things that can come up, which, you know, could change the entire scope of this. It's just having this money available in a grant form that will pay for these services to find out how practical, how feasible, and what the cost is, and how far the project can go. It's very possible it could come back at another level. I'm not going to speculate because I am not an engineer, but I'm telling you this is what's required to go forward.
Could you tell me that, how did they determine that section of Grass Lake Road? Because there are several blind curves, the one at the top of the hill that's dangerous as all get out. How was this 3/10 of a mile picked to get 1.6 million or 1.5 million?
We requested it, and as persons in this audience have been asking for this to be done for many, many years. So, I mean, this is not a secret. It's a crappy piece of road.
If the survey shows that they can't do the straightening or whatnot,
Speculating.
can that, well, no, I'm just asking, can that money be used for another dangerous section of Grass Lake Road, or is it only allowed
We'll
for that
have to see
one?
what we're allowed to do with the grant. I would have to petition the grantee.
Okay, I think that's all I've got for questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, where can we find a copy of is the grant application available?
I can procure something for you, yes.
Okay, because we've been unable to get copies of the grant application.
You'll need to FOIA that, ma'am. If you come into the township, you'll need to FOIA that, fill out a Freedom of Information Act form.
Yep. Okay, whole process online.
Online.
Next person, somebody was,
Hi, Mary Smith, and I'm going to keep it short because out of respect for Mike, because I value his input, but I just wanted to go on the record that there's not those potholes slow people down. As far as I'm concerned, I've lived back there for years. And, you know, years ago they changed the speed limit on those back roads and we were told, oh, don't worry about it. They're never going to go that fast. Well, they go really fast. But if you talk to the local safety, police and fire, there's not a lot of accidents back there. But I've pulled a lot of cars out of kids speeding through. So my concern is there's going to be a big cut through from Ormond to 59. I put a lot of faith in Mike because he said that the wetlands are going to be protected. And that's more my concern. I don't want to see a lot of traffic start bottlenecking there because of, you know, but besides that, I disagree that that's a safety factor. If you live on back roads, no matter where you live, you're going to have potholes, bottom line. And we don't want all of them paved. So that's all I wanted to say.
thank you.
All right, I promised my sister I would not speak. I'm Nancy Holmeister, 4900 Grass Lake Road. I just, following up on my neighbor's comments, it's $1.65 million to improve a third of a mile of gravel road. And I know we got the grants from the state, so it's not township funding, but it is overall our state tax dollars. And the fact of the matter is, and I understand Mike Colwell's comments earlier, but I have been riding that road on horseback since the early 1970s. It was not a two-track road. It's always been a dirt road. And I chose to move out there because I enjoyed living in a country area. Now, I like to walk my dogs on those roads, but I don't feel I can do so safely because people drive those roads incredibly fast. And unfortunately, I live on that one straight area between the hill to the east and the curve to the west that you're planning to improve. And people come off those hills from either direction and they go way too fast. And I cannot tell you how many times driving past the intersections of Cumberland Valley Drive and Steeple Hill, I have to slam my brakes because people are coming off those private paved roads and they're not stopping. They just come to the gravel road and they think nobody's coming and they turn. And it has been a very dangerous intersection, and I don't see how paving it is going to make it any safer. So the one thing I would request is, if you do proceed with this paving project, that you look to reduce the speed limit. And I know Governor Granholm had moved the state speed limit to 55 miles per hour for rural roads, but I also know the township can work with state police, do a study, and reduce that speed limit to 25 and enforce that speed limit. And so what I would really request is that I don't want this project to go forward because I think it'll make roads less safe. I do not want to walk a paved path there because cars will go too fast. But if you do proceed, I really, really encourage the township to reevaluate the rural roads and try to post lower speed limits and enforce those. And that could be a great course of revenue. So that's my comments.
Thank you.
Dave Gerke, 2360 Canyon Ridge Road. I am the president of my homeowner association for Cumberland Valley. I can tell you that for the 15 years that I have lived there, we have desired that section of road to be paved. And we have been talking to, obviously, Mike, Elaine, other supervisors and members of the board over the previous years. And we have aggressively pursued it. The road is dangerous. That's the bottom line. It's dangerous because the line of sight for a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit makes it dangerous, period. So when somebody says that's not dangerous, that's nonsense. So I can tell you that overwhelmingly that the homeowner association, its members, want this project done. We would expect, logically, that the second phase is to continue from Ormond Road further on up to Grass Lake Road. You're not going to start in the middle. You're not going to start with a section that has a dangerous spot in the very center of the road. That would be ridiculous. You're going to continue phase 1, phase 2. I would love to see the whole thing paved at some point in time because honestly, I think the whole of Grass Lake could be paved. I think that would be beneficial to the common good of all of us, really. Even the people that are opposed to it that live on Grass Lake Road, I think it's a benefit to them as well. Even they may not think so, but I do. I would also ask, there's quite a few members here tonight. If I could have a show of hands from Cumberland Valley. The vast majority of these people want that project done. We want that paved. Please. Okay. All right, I'm sorry. I just want to let you know that there is tremendous support for it. I'm also not a member of the Rick Friends and Family Club, whatever the hell that is. So we wanted this long before he ever showed up.
Family, I'll tell you right now.
So I'm just stating the truth, right? I don't spend Christmas at his house, okay? I just want you to know that. Some people think that. I don't know who those people are, but that's not the case. So honestly, it's the right thing to do overall for the majority of the people that live in that community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely not. You're not representing the public.
Yes, sir.
I'm Ted Neff. I live at 2501 Cumberland. I'm in favor of the project. I'm a professional civil engineer. I started my career working with the Federal Highway Administration. Worked for many years as a highway engineer. I'm not doing other things now, but in my professional opinion, that section of roadway does not meet current geometric and safety standards for the traffic that it has. I'll leave it at that. Others have expressed, I think, the residents' views pretty clearly, but I'd like to close with an experience that my wife had 2 years ago. She was coming down the road on an icy day. We haven't talked about winter days.
Terrible.
Met a car, spun out, did a 360 at the bottom of the hill, went off the shoulder, was up on two wheels, ready to roll into the lake. I had to come get her, pull the car down. There's actually a police report. One of our White Lake policemen helped out as well. But if she'd been going a little bit faster, she would have rolled over and been upside down in the lake. Now, people stay away from the sides of the road because it's not plowed and it's unsafe. It's very, very hard to see people coming, and it's, in normal conditions, yes, you shouldn't be speeding, but in wintertime, she's probably only going 20 miles an hour. But that was enough to cause a problem, and it could have been a disaster. It wasn't, but it was close enough that I just wanted to close with that comment. So,
thank you.
I'm saying this with some professional experience in highway design. I think clearly the traffic is what makes it warrants, I think, its improvement in a timely fashion. Very low traffic, you can get away with those things. But there's pretty heavy traffic, and we live right next to the roadway. We're the first lot on Cumberland Drive. So with that, I'll close my comments, but just wanted to give you my thoughts and support for the project.
Thank you.
My name's Anthony Noble. I live at 3423 on Wingate Estates. First, I'd like to thank the board for their hard work. It's not easy sitting up here and having comments thrown at you for doing, I think, a job well done. Second, I'd like to thank Senator Kowal, because I think it's very important for public officials that they're able to capture taxes and bring it back to the community. When this money leaves, it leaves, and we need it coming back to White Lake and the community we live in. And third, a little story about myself. I had my kids down that road, and I'm a police officer for 24 years, so you want to talk about public safety. One morning, and it goes with the pothole or the bumps in the road. We were coming around the curve on bikes, that going up that hill with the one person was talking about, and car. You don't have to be going that fast. I've investigated thousands of accidents. Started hitting, almost took one of my kids out. To me, that when I heard it was going to get paved, and I heard that it was a tax issue, or they were bringing funds that wasn't from the township, I thought a remarkable idea. Yeah, I like the dirt roads too, but I also like safety, and I enjoy, I like to enjoy the outdoors in the dirt. So to me, it's a safety issue coming around there. So I'm looking forward, and like I said, appreciate everybody's comments, but something has to be done there, or we are going to have a fatality there. And I believe years ago there was a fatality there with a person on a snowmobile when I was researching it. So, yeah, that's what I heard. So, to me, kids walking, all it takes is one time, and you're going to remember driving down that road the rest of your life. So I think it's a great thing for the township. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Randy Crawford. I'm at 2740 Steeple Hill, and I just want to say I echo those comments about while the funds are available, I think we should take advantage of that. It's not often that you get taxpayer money that you get to actually use in your own community. It's always out someplace else, and so I appreciate the work that's been done. I've been lived on Steeple Hill for 10 years now, and I tell you, I drive down through that curve every day, going to work, going home. I leave early in the morning, come back after school's out, but that road gets so bad with those potholes, and it causes people to go into the other lane to steer around the potholes. It's like a maze that you go through to get around those potholes, and it's so blind going around those turns that you go around there and there's people that are on the wrong side of the road because they're trying to avoid the potholes, which is a huge safety concern, just in that aspect. And not to mention, you know, the people that do walk down that road, there's lots of kids that go from the one sub to the other. So, you know, I'm fully supportive of paving that, and I think it's a great idea. So just want to say that.
Thank you.
Jean-Philippe Leuve, 247 Rosario Lane. I'm not in your neighborhood, so I'm really ignorant about that part of the road, but I was just listening to what you were saying, and I heard someone saying that, well, if we replace, get rid of the potholes, and after that, with the paved road, people might actually drive faster. So we might create maybe another safety problem. So I was just wondering, might maybe a speed bump or something like that help to force people to slow down that maybe otherwise wouldn't pay attention to a sign, but to a sign with a speed bump, well, they cannot pay attention to it, but they might get a serious shake. That's one thing. And then someone also mentioned that they're walking their dogs on the side. So I was wondering, well, are we talking just road? Are we talking maybe something wider on the road, or maybe some sidewalk? I know it sounds ridiculous, just in one section in the middle of nowhere, but is there something else that can be done for the pedestrians? Because we wouldn't want to create another safety problem by fixing one. That's all my insight, otherwise I have no clue about that area.
Thank you.
Just ideas.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Do I need to introduce myself again? Ralph Keller,
For the recorder.
4606 Grass Lake Road. I have a question, Mike, before you started. In the other board meetings, there was a amount mentioned of $225 or $2,250,000.
Initially, there were some estimates that were just thrown out there. They were pretty much just off the cuff.
Just making
estimates.
stuff up is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
They just
okay.
kind of like, I would think it's this. If
Just
you
making
look
stuff up.
on the 2019 projected projects from the Road Commission of Oakland County, which they just released, and there's actually going to be a meeting on Thursday night to verify the projects. I'll be glad for all of you to know they're going to increase the spending in Oakland County roads up to 155 million, I believe, this year, and they're going to see a significant increase next year. You will see, I'm just sidebarring here real
That's
quick.
fine.
Additional 10 miles of road paved in Oakland County, and multiple projects throughout different communities, and we are slated for 2 or 3, but I'm not going to spill the beans on them yet. And these are ones that I'm not paying for. And I got nothing to do with it. The county's paying for it. So,
And technically, that grant money belongs to the whole township.
Correct.
So it's really township money.
Correct.
You're acting like it's not township money.
no, it's state money. It's
Right,
township
the
money. It's
township-
all
once
of
the
our-
township gets
it's
it,
all of
it's-
our monies that I see. This is very simple. You can call it self-serving, you can call it whatever you want. If we don't take advantage of what comes our way from time to time, Mr. Potter just landed a grant, by the way, thank you very much for that grant you just landed, for some improvements in our water department. And we just also landed, I just noticed another grant that we were able to acquire to help defer some costs on some environmental issues in the township. If we don't pursue these monies, they're gonna go down the road. So I don't care if people think it's that way, because in a sense it is, because I care what happens in my community. I love Wyandotte, I love, all the other places in around the state of Michigan, the great state. But my grass that I set on when I walk out of my house is White Lake Township, and my responsibility is to try to bring anything I can to improve the quality of life and safety of this community. And I'm not, again, I said before, I'm not
Not against
apologizing
that.
for it.
This money's going to be benefiting roughly 1% of the community.
Are you going to tell that to somebody's mother or father if something happens to them?
Well, let's be serious.
Do you know how many homes are affected within 1 mile of that road?
Do you know how many accidents?
No, I have it's a technical question. Do you know how many homes are within
No,
1
I don't.
mile?
Here's the question.
1,085 residences are within 1 mile of that road.
And most of them, they had the option of hill and
Yeah, 1,085 homes within a mile, so
but
within
they
one
don't
half a
use,
mile.
they don't use, they will, hey, how do you know now you're gonna add 1,000 more people?
I'm not gonna debate it, I'm not gonna debate it with you. I appreciate your opinion, and that's why I wanted people to be able to voice it, and you're up there.
Okay.
I've been getting hammered, and I'm just letting you know how I feel about this.
And you're saying this is a safety decision, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you all live in Cumberland. How much is your property going to go up when that's paved? I've been driving it 22 years. So what? You made a decision to move there.
There's a majority here.
Y'all live there. It doesn't matter. Okay. It's
All right. I'm not going to get into a question and answer thing.
Yeah.
One meeting. Okay.
Okay.
Finish your comments, sir.
Okay. With Grass Lake Road between Ormond and West Meadow is already paved, right? We all agree with that. So that's straight and paved. From West Meadow to Cumberland, which I don't know why you don't use Cumberland in all the paperwork. You always use Steeple Hill. Why not Cumberland?
County wrote it up.
There was a total of 6 accidents on that section of road from 2004 through 2017. 2 of those involved wildlife, 1 a deer and 1 a raccoon. Paving road, I doubt it's going to have any effect on that. And this is information based off the FOIA requests that we received from the township. Now, the FOIA request had a bunch of accidents, but there was a lot at the intersection of Ormond and Grass Lake Road, a lot of accidents there. Maybe that should be addressed. Interesting, from Cumberland to Hill, which is a little bit longer, roughly a tenth of a mile, maybe a little bit longer, there have been, in the same 14 years, 23 accidents. 23, let's see, 23 for, also 1 fatality in the 14 years. Where should the money go? Where is the real problem? Now, of course, those people don't live in $400,000 and $500,000 homes, so they probably don't. It matters. Come on.
Okay, look. Please.
Let me talk. Well, you can make improvements. You can widen road. You can use that money, widen all those dirt roads, because there's a lot of narrow places on all the dirt roads back there. You live on one, right? It's narrow by your house.
Absolutely.
I've drove all the dirt roads. I used to work for the Oakland Press and Circulation Department. I've driven just about every dirt road in Oakland County. That part of Grass Lake is not even close to being. I know we're concerned about White Lake, but there are many dirt roads a lot worse where people drive a lot faster. At least normally if it doesn't rain right after they grade it, that road lasts for 4 or 5 weeks before it starts getting rough.
Okay. Please, let him speak.
So what if that estimate of $2,250,000 is accurate? You're going to be $750,000 short. Where's that money coming from?
We haven't gotten there. We don't know. We'll find out. The study will reveal this.
Can that money be used other places? Because of the MEDC grants that infrastructure of White Lake. It didn't say Grass Lake. All the other grants said, and the thing you posted online, they had specific areas of road.
I would have to talk to the grant source.
It's a great question.
You don't
We don't
know?
yet.
Question. I can't answer that.
Seems like you'd know that.
Okay.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Anyone else? I'd like to read a letter I'd like to enter into the record. I received a letter that says, we cannot attend a board meeting on Tuesday, but we wanted you to be aware that we support the Grass Lake Road paving project. Thanks, Clyde and Kim. This is from Clyde Ritkin. I can say that wrong. I just massacred that. Sorry about that. The White Lake Board of Trustees will consider participating in the cost-sharing funding of a preliminary engineering study, $125,000 for paving Grass Lake Road. You will discuss the issue at a board meeting on Tuesday, 8/21/18 at 7 p.m. We support this engineering study and the paving of Grass Lake Road. We had a large group of residents that explored this paving project back in 2004. We were concerned about the roadway safety for everyday drivers and school buses, along with the elimination of dirt and dust. We dropped the idea when we realized we needed an SAD and the costs were very high. It was not dropped due to environmental concerns nor non-support from a majority of residents. It's really great to see our tax dollars coming back to us to improve our use of Grass Lake Road. The current engineering study will determine what, if any, changes would be made to the current Grass Lake Road. Someone is sending false information out on social media that the wetlands are being removed and all the trees are being removed. They haven't even done the preliminary engineering study yet. Please support the preliminary engineering study for paving Grass Lake Road. Sincerely, Clyde and Kim Rickon, I can get that right. Rickonen, I'm sorry, 2880 Steeple Hill. Okay, so that was the one that email that I did receive, and they specifically requested that I read it into the record.
I believe we all received that, so thank you for reading that.
Any other comments at this time? I'd like to turn this over to the board. Okay, thank you. Board members, I'd like to see what you have to say at this point. Mr. Lilly.
Since everybody else has been off the topic for the last half an hour, I'd like to go off topic too a little bit. I gotta say, and I seen some of the emails that kind of crossed Facebook, and I'm not a Facebook person, but I guess I am kind of part of the family, so to speak. I've known Mike for since '92. Served on my planning commission. Rick, being supervisor now, been a lot of time behind the scenes that all of us. Mike, you've been part of those discussions talking about how we're going to get money to improve our roads. All the roads in White Lake are bad. There's no ones that are better than others, a few less potholes, but other than that, they're all bad. And I was tickled to death when I seen Rick a couple weeks ago, it might be a month ago now, and said, what's going on over at Bogey Lake Road? I don't know what's going on. Rick tells me, well, they're going to blacktop all of Bogey Lake Road. Well, they never told me about it. But I was happy as heck to see that the road commission finally was doing a road in White Lake Township. We've had numerous discussions since then about a lot of roads. The board a year ago put $1 million away for potential road improvement. But that $1 million is not going to be spent just doing a mile of road. It has to be used in conjunction with other money to make it work for our benefit. I'm happy that Mike was able to secure that money for this road project, and when it come down, it's designated for a specific purpose. It's okay with me. It's money that locally we don't have to spend out of our general fund, and I hope, like many grants that we're waiting for, you mentioned, Aaron, you mentioned a park that we have down here waiting for a grant approval. All those things are going to make White Lake Township better. It's just going to take a little bit of time, but it's hard to believe that we can sit here and people are actually complaining about getting their road an improvement. But whatever money that we can put, and if it's designated by the state to do that, so be it. If I was in Mike's shoes up in Lansing, I'd probably do the same thing. I'd want my road fixed before I worry about it, others. But I'm just happy that we have this money that now we can do. To answer the one question, I think at the last meeting we talked about how far that money could go, and we all, I think the board agreed that we're not going to spend any more money than what that grant will allow us, and if it means improving the road and leaving it a dirt road and we have to chloride it or something, then so be it. We'll worry about the rest part, but we need to utilize this money and not lose it for any other projects. And I think right now, from what I understand, is it has to be used for this, and let's use it and get on with it. And I do agree with some of Lisa's recommendation, particularly the time period, that this cannot just go on and on and on. We need to get the county to say, if we're willing to put up the funds to do the engineering, what can we expect time-wise? And I would certainly expect by the time the engineering is done that we would be having a meeting with the county, the township board, and our residents to be able to view those improvements before actually shovel on the ground. So I'm more than in favor of what Mike has accomplished for the township, and you for pursuing all of these road improvements and grants that we possibly can. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, I just thought I'd make a comment. You know, I spend a lot of time on these roads, especially in this area, and I love the dirt roads as much as anyone else that's here. I mean, I drive them every day, and I'm not sure if there's more days that I love them or more days that I hate them, you know, because, I mean, like you said, in the spring, especially in the spring, there's some days you can't even get it down them. I mean, they're just terrible. and they never seem to be that great. I mean, they're resurfacing right now. They call it resurfacing, where they put more material down. But it's just temporary. And I love the dirt roads, and we walk down them, we ride down them. But they are straight up dangerous. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they're dangerous to be on a horse. They're dangerous to be on a bike. They're dangerous for your kids. These people drive like maniacs, especially where I reside. It's like they get going like 80 miles an hour. I mean, it's just like, we're sitting there like, holy smokes, you know? Can't even, it's just dangerous to be out there. And if we can do anything to make them just a little more safe for us and for everybody, you know, like Carol Burkhart used to say, safety, health, welfare of the citizens. And, you know, it's a no-brainer. It's going to be safer for everyone. So a little more pavement, that's okay. You know, it'll be a relief in the spring when you get to it, because you'll be off that crappy dirt. So I'm all for it. So thank you.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, thank you. I have been personally involved in paving miles and miles of gravel roads, and in the public hearings that we hold, much like this, it's amazing that I certainly do hear other people that want to be on gravel roads. And I hear that we moved from the city to be on a gravel road, a dirt road. And once they're paved, however, I've never yet had one of those people say, gosh, I wish I was back on a dirt road. Just the ambiance itself, the quiet traffic versus the banging around and the trailers jumping up and down, just that alone gives a peacefulness to the area. To answer a couple technical questions, this is a county section line road, and so it is not owned by a subdivision. It wasn't put in by a subdivision. Therefore, the county is responsible to maintain it and will always be responsible to maintain it, which is different than a subdivision street. Subdivision street is, although owned by the county, and it's a little bugaboo of mine, there's no advantage of having a county street in a subdivision because they don't maintain it, they don't plow it, they don't take care of it, they don't pay for anything. They'll establish a special assessment district, so the lady talked about who's going to fix those roads. In a subdivision, the people have to band together and establish an SAD to pave those roadways. County streets, however, are paid for by the county as required by their mandate to maintain their roadways. One drawback, of course, to this being a county road is that they do not allow speed humps or speed bumps on a main county roadway. It's not approved traffic calming technique, and therefore they will not allow it at all. That being said, and I totally understand both sides because I've seen it many, many times, in obtaining grants and state and federal funds, these monies require applying for political pressure, cajoling, whatever we need to, and we actually hire people that are qualified to write grants. We don't just hire John Doe to write grants. It's got to be done just right. It's got to paint the township in the best light, and this is going to solve the American problems just by having this grant come to White Lake Township, and we've got many more in the works. And so if you call that cajoling or politicking or whatever in order to bring federal and state funds into this township, by golly, that's why you elect people, because of what they'll do for us here in White Lake Township. You don't elect Mr. Kowal because of what he's going to do in Lansing. You do it for what he's going to do in White Lake Township. And so I certainly support all our politicians and our township staff for doing what they can for our residents, not for some other resident. And it's, as I've seen it over and over again, if you don't apply and you don't get that money, and if you don't convince the grantor that you're the best one for that, it goes somewhere else, and we don't see any money. And so I'm really in total favor of this. And if you don't really like it, and these people wouldn't like it, boy, there's miles of private roads, or it's miles of dirt roads that those people would just be salivating to get the money that's now been allocated towards Grass Lake. So I'm in full favor of this as well.
Mr. Lilly?
Yeah,
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
have a
Oh,
comment.
I'm sorry.
And I also live on the east end of Grass Lake Road. This is for someone that lives in White Lake my entire life. I live off a dirt road now. I will be going back to a dirt road. I agree. This needs to be done. Even in my parents' neighborhood, Brendel Road. You guys know it well. I don't really want it, but relatively speaking, if we could get grant money to get done, and that's also my way in tonight. I don't travel that road in January, February, March. I'll be honest, you guys. And I am that person in a Jeep Cherokee that's always dirty that does 25 to 30 miles an hour. So I understand it from a safety perspective.
Thank you.
So I listened carefully and I took notes here, so bear with me. I want to start out by saying, I say it often, and I'll start by saying public safety is always my #1 priority. So thank you all for coming and expressing your opinion and your voice. I appreciate it. I was only contacted, as I mentioned before, this board by one resident prior to this meeting, and I'd like to take this opportunity to remind all of you that you're not going to get accurate information and answers on social media. We're all here, we're available to answer your questions and to contact us anytime. We don't just work one day a month, we're here all the time. So please reach out to us and get accurate information and understand what's happening and get some clarity if you're not sure. So I want to make sure I just really encourage that. I don't like the air of impropriety either, and so I wish that we clear that up here tonight, and I want to make sure everybody leaves here feeling comfortable that that is not what happened here. This is just a great opportunity for grant money that I think we would be foolish to not use to improve our roads. So I'm in full support of it as well. And lastly, I just want to mention, I guess that's it. I covered it all. I just think that this is a good opportunity, and I want to encourage you to contact us directly. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lilly?
I'd like to make a motion to approve a cost participation agreement for preliminary engineering of Grass Lake Road from Ormond to Steeple Hill Drive. Board project 54062. After attorney's review and your recommendation, Rick, to go ahead, authorize you to go ahead and sign the contract.
Thank you. I have motion looking for support. Support. Support by Mr. Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you. I want to thank everybody that came tonight. Doesn't matter what your opinion, well, which side of the fence you are on, or in this case, which side of the road. But this is how it works, and I know that the board members indulge me oftentimes when I let people talk for extended periods of time, but I want you to be able to get what you have to say out. I believe you have the right to do that, and that's why we're here. We work for you. Thank you. Okay.
Can I just ask one question?
I'll catch me later, okay? I will answer it. Call me. Come and see me. Come and see me. Okay? All right, seriously, come and see me. Call Trish and make an appointment. Okay? We're going to move on to new business. I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. Thank you. 9E, approval of the walking track seal coating. Geez, I'll be fine. Approval of Fisk Farm pathway and driveway project. Okay. You want to take a break?
I'm just saying.
We're going to take a 6-7 minute recess.
Are we allowed to ask him?
Yeah, now you can ask him the question.
So if I understand the comments correctly from some people, they're saying this is phase 2. There's only 3 of us that live on the next section of Grass Lake.
Tabling it, or Jason
Telling me that next phase.
please.
Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll get back to 9D, which is the approval of the Fisk Farm Pathway and Driveway Project. Mr. O'Neill?
Thank you. Back earlier this month, the Parks and Recreation Committee recommended that the board, after receiving the bid tabulation from the engineer, move ahead with this project. And our anticipated cost was somewhere around $85,000 to $95,000. Unfortunately, the bids came in far, far higher than that, closer to twice that amount. So at this point, I think it makes a great deal of sense to hold off. This is a pretty tough time to bid this kind of work out in the season, and I think we should rebid it, as does the engineer. We should rebid it in the winter with an eye on spring construction in hopes that we'll get a much better cost. We only had 2 bidders. That wasn't very encouraging, so we're hoping for more bidders and a much lower price during the winter, and that would be our recommendation.
Okay. Mr. Lilly?
I think in addition to John's comments, the Historical Society also had some concerns about the project as well, and I'd like to make a motion to table this some further date later on when we can receive some bids that are competitive and be able to move forward.
Mr. Supervisor, I'm not sure tabling's the right
Yeah,
motion.
yeah.
We're rejecting these in lieu of rebidding this fall, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
That would be my request.
Okay.
Or we-
Oh, I know what Terry's intention was. We can postpone this.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Yeah, we don't want to postpone the bids that came
No,
in.
no.
But certainly postpone and rebid this project
In the future, a future date. Probably in December or January.
That is the
I
right.
just want to make sure in my comments that before we rebid it, that maybe the concerns of the Historical Society be addressed, even if it is maybe a 2-phase bid, that we do a portion of it and maybe not the other, but
Exactly.
are some additional concerns.
I'll second Mr. Lilly's motion.
I withdraw my motion. You can
You get to make
rephrase that for me.
a whole new one.
So for discussion then, Mr. Supervisor.
Yes, sir.
I move that we reject the bids that are presented for the Fisk Farm Pathway and Driveway Improvement Project and authorize the Township Community Development Department to reanalyze and get some advice from the Historical Society and then rebid this fall.
That is a motion.
Yes.
Have a motion, looking for support?
I'll support with comment.
Support with comment?
As a Historical Society member, I'm on the line probably every time I show up to a board meeting. One of the things the Historical Society would really like to see is a visual aid of how it encroaches into the Fisk Farm property. I know I know it kind of kisses the fence in a couple spots, but really encroaches about the utility pole. If that could be given as all the Historical Society a visual of how it's going to affect, that would be awesome, great, fantastic, all those positive words. That would be great. Also, they would also like to do like exactly what someone said, a phase 1 for the driveway and a phase 2 for the sidewalk. If that's an option. I would personally would like to see both at the same time. And it is a crazy crazy walk. My job took me to that complex to work, and I went from Bell Tire to that plaza, and I was told the gentleman that I was going from Bell Tire to that plaza, he's like, good luck, that's the worst part of your day is going to be crossing through there. Seriously. I made it back, obviously, and this was 7:45 in the morning. So it's totally a needed project. I just think we need some more clarification on behalf of the Historical Society, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so
additional comment.
Yes, sir.
Just a note, in the future, when these bids come back before the board, I really believe that the quotes from J&A should come to the administration before they're placed on the agenda. If you look at the costs that I believe that were presented to the board, it does not include any engineering fees that obviously would have inflated the cost more so ask that from now on, when you examine these, that all of the fees, even if there's blank lines left, that at least it's a cue to the board that some of those costs have not been, and I don't expect G&A to do those, but we need to make sure that those blanks are filled in or left blank. Notice to the board that there are some additional costs to the project.
Duly noted. Yes, sir.
Just for the record, quickly, Fisk Farm is a township park, and the township a couple of years ago commissioned a master plan to be done on the park for some kind of long-term improvements, and the Parks and Rec Committee and the Historical Society worked together on that. And so I don't know if there was a disconnect in communication, but I was under the impression that everybody was on the same page with kind of where this is going, though there are different opinions as to whether or not this should be done or when it should be done or how it should be broken up. But from where I stand, we usually try to roll as many things into a project as we can, because you're not spending money on mobilization multiple times. That's wasteful. So that is why all of this was rolled into one. The Historical Society very much wants a driveway to be improved, but if we're going to spend the money to go out and move the same equipment out that's necessary to fix a driveway, then it only makes sense to put these pathways in now. And we're going to have to move fences, we're going to have to replace fences that actually badly need to be replaced because they don't look too good. And there are a lot of things that master plan calls for, and this is just one of those steps. So there, if you would like a copy, if anyone in the audience or anyone would be watching would like a copy of that, our office would be happy to provide that to you. But there are some really great recommendations, and we hope to continue the conversation between the Parks and Recreation Committee and the Historical Society in hopes of, opening the park up more for our residents and making it more accessible to our residents, which is really the goal in this project.
Very good. Okay. So, another comment? Because we have a
Comment.
motion of support.
Yeah, I have a comment.
Okay.
Mr. Lufkin, do you by chance have somewhat of an overhead draft of where these pathways were going to go?
Sure.
Just something simple. I'm not looking for a survey, but I've yet to see an overhead as to where. If you have that, if you can just email.
Yeah, we have a plan view of the proposed layout.
Perfect.
I could send you, but it does come into the property a little bit. There's some electrical poles in the area. There's a tornado siren, so, and it's an open ditch which we have to maintain. So to get around all that, the most cost-effective option is going closer to the property.
I just had no idea if these paths were going to be along the roads or if they're going to go right through the farm, or I have no idea.
Closer to the road, but
close like a sidewalk.
That's what I was
It's gotta
looking
be on the
for.
other
Just
side of
a
the ditch.
basic draft.
Right.
Can you please email it to the whole board?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Second. Anybody else on the board have a question? I have a resident that would like to say something. Yes, dear.
Do I need to go to the microphone?
It'd be nice because they can't hear you on the television.
Maybe we can afford a handheld mic that can be traveled around a little bit for people.
I'll have to get a grant for that.
Grant for that? Okay.
Susie Thompson. I live at 1655 Bogey Lake Road, and I've been a longtime member of the Historical Society. And we thought when we went and said we'd be a part of the parks that we would get a say-so, but they make plans and just present them to us. And we are not happy with having to give up quite a bit of our land. We aren't a very big park to start with. And the sidewalk to me, so that you can go to the tire store and then walk over and go shopping, does not benefit us. Nobody is going to be walking to our facility. And the traffic is only going to get heavier, so walking is not part of it. What we need is the driveway when we have 1,000 people a day coming in, and it's not wide enough to come in and leave too, which often at festivals, people are coming and people are going. And we did really want a visual, but we don't want to give up our land, and a majority of us do not want that sidewalk because it won't benefit us. It'll benefit people from across M59 to go to the shopping center. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Barb?
Hi, Barbara Ellison, 6455 Cooley Lake Road. On behalf of the members of the Historical Society, we sent a letter to everybody, so you already know all of that. I just want to clarify that as far as the visuals go, The staking is what we're looking for, if that's possible. It's just easier for the members to be on the property and actually see it. And there are costs. I don't know if we've actually clarified all that, but if they put the sidewalk in, I understand they'll take the fence out, but who pays to put the fence back in? We have the large equipment that has to be moved. So those are the questions that are still outstanding. So it would benefit us to have some more one-on-one conversation with you and maybe Jason.
Sounds good.
I think this kind of complies with what the motion is, that's on the,
Right.
out there right now is, and you know, I think that pretty much is what the direction is
Right.
going in.
Right. I was just saying, if you were thinking maybe just showing us a picture on the screen of the pathway, we need a more hands-on
More
type
physical.
of approach, right, to see it.
Staking would be very helpful.
Probably be advantageous.
Where the fence is gonna be.
Jean-Luc?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, for taking the public's input. I'm also a member of the Park and Rec Committee. And just to explain a little bit what happened is that it took some time to get some of the feedback from some of the commissions to define what was feasible. And then because we tried to have it maybe done this year, we tried to send out for bid. The township, we suggested that. And now it comes back, the numbers are really high, which actually might be a blessing in disguise in a certain way, because that gives us a second chance of actually looking at it more systemically, look more at everything else. And there were a few points that we had talked about. One of them is that currently where it's staked out, we are taking out some of the property, and if we change the wire that holds the electric pole, instead of going at an angle, we put it at straight down, you know, with a, I don't know how to describe it, but it's you have a bar and then it goes this way and then vertically down instead of going sideways. You save a little bit of that space, so you can have the sidewalk, you can shift it a little bit closer to the road and away from the farm. There was one item for space. The other aspect is that for the residents that live really across in the mobile home subdivision, currently many people have observed that it's really a safety problem for the people to cross to go in Walmart or all the stores that are in that area. And maybe these people then could also walk along Fisk Farm, and when it's open they could go in, but currently it's really unsafe to cross it on foot. So maybe if you're looking at this project again, maybe we have a second chance to incorporate a pedestrian crossing, which also, like previously was mentioned, the cost of setting up the machines and everything, if you do it all at once, it makes it also more affordable. And then the third item that I had for it is there is always that pole with a siren. I'm not sure it's exactly the most historically accurate and the most decorative part of that corner. I don't know how we can reposition it more in that other corner behind the doctor's office and that intersection. It would do perfectly the same job and wouldn't be just a so high item. So these are my items that I wanted to mention that for your motion could be considered for the next time.
And again, this is what this motion that's out here for, is to have some discussion, further discussion. So this is all will be discussed at further time.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I want to talk.
Yes, Jim.
I don't want to all day. Because I wasn't going to talk, but I can't take it. No.
Sharon Bigelow, 5855 Jackson Boulevard, White Lake. And I've lived here almost 40 years now. I was a city girl. I moved out here and it was like a different world. We came to the country and my husband drove to the city every day for 35 years. And I am a charter member for the Historical Society. And there aren't too many of us that are charter members. So I remember that farm was in such disarray. It was just a ramshackled house, and the property wasn't too bad. But over the years, we worked on it, we worked on it, and we worked on it. We're still working. Us original people are still working. And I'm getting old. I'm getting tired, you know. But the thing is it got to be a perfect, I felt perfect. It was perfect. And now we're changing it. We're moving things. We're putting in, we're going to move this over here, and we're going to bring paths, and we're going to do that. And I'm thinking, why? Why are we changing it? It was supposed to be an old farmhouse, original. When we started there, we did hay rides in the fields. There weren't any stores there. There was no dentist's office, just us. And people said, well, why didn't you buy that property out in front? Because we had $20. You know, we didn't have any money. We raised money over the years. We've been raising money to try to keep that going ourselves. And there's only about 10 of us that actually work. There's 75 people signed up, but there's about 10 of us that are doing all the work. So that's why it just hurts me to think how it's modernizing, it's changing, you know. It's not the old farm that it was. And there's still, like the Thompsons, and there's some other members that are family members, so they remember. And that's what we wanted. We wanted the old farm for young kids to say, this is how they used to live. And if you go inside the farm and see, there's everything like how they used to live, not how they're living now. And we explain it to them. And I being a charter member, I'm one of the ones that tell them all about it and how it was. There was a big hole in the ceiling when we took over, and the bees were in there, and all the honey was dripping down all over the floor. And it was terrible. But now it's beautiful. And if you go, you'll see it is beautiful. It's a little bit too rich, really, because farm people didn't really live with all those beautiful pieces of furniture and all that. But
well, we'll have an opportunity, and that's what this is about. This motion is going to allow an opportunity to express all those opinions and everything.
that's right, and that's why I finally spoke up, because I didn't really want to, but I think I have to, because I love the farm.
Well, again, you'll
So-
have another opportunity, I'm sure, to kind of go through some.
All
of
right,
this.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Motion support.
Motion support. Amy, can you read back that motion? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure we're all clear.
Trust me.
All right, so I think I've got Mr. Powell is saying that he wants to move to reject the bids presented for the Fisk Farm Pathway Driveway project and authorize the Township Community Development Department to reanalyze and get advice from the Historical Society and rebid the project in the fall.
Excellent.
Exactly what you said.
That's what
I remembered you saying that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jerry supported it, I think. Did you supported it, right?
No, I did
No,
not.
who
I'll
supported
support it.
Andrea did.
Andrea did. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
It
God, I'm
supported
all
with
over.
comment and then
Who's who? Okay, we have motion, we have support. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Okay, all right. Approval of walking track seal coating. Sean?
Thank you. You have a well, if you're gonna, I'm just saying.
Making sure.
All right, I'll just quickly refer to the memo from Jason in your packet dated August 9th. The Parks and Rec Committee received bids from a couple of different contractors for resealing of the pathways in both Vetter and Holiday Park. There's also some damage at Vetter Park. It's been patched up so it's safe, but it needs to be repaired properly. And this price of $7,115 includes all of that work for both tracks. And it's amazing how many people use it, because as soon as there's a problem, whether it's a branch or bee's nest or something, we get calls, and John's usually right out there to take care of it. And I just want to mention that it's been 6 years since we've done this work previously.
Okay, and I see the two bids that we have. Yes, Mr.
I just have a question on, I have your recommendation letter of the 7115 for the two bids, but then when you scroll down to, I believe A&R, is that what you're recommending?
Yeah, that doesn't equal.
A&R bid is 3725, and you scroll down to the next sheet and it's 5400.
Right.
Something.
We'll have to look at that. And at this point, I'm just asking for an amount not to exceed.
It's actually 9125 is what those two added up to.
9125?
Yeah.
I would
If
hope
I'm
that
looking
the
at
math
the
was-
right.
Yeah, I don't know if something has
The two
changed. I
right
do
after
know.
that, Sean. 5400 for Dublin Center and 3725 for
So it'd
Holly
be
Park.
9125.
Unless I'm missing something here.
I agree.
There's a repeat of some of the specs on the second.
Well, it's
Well,
for
it
different.
duplicates.
It's a repeat, but it's different programs.
Different plays.
It's two different
Well,
places.
The request is to allow the supervisor to move forward and sign the contract. So if you would like to wait to get clarification from Parks and Rec on this, that is okay. If you'd prefer to authorize.
We're running out of season.
Well, I guess my request would be if you feel that the 9125 is acceptable, then I would approve that.
Having to make a motion, but I don't like spending other people's money
Well,
either.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it appears that the intent was to go with A&R. That was the recommendation for both, both of the items, but we need to verify that. But
I'd be happy to make a motion for the 9125 to cover both of those if the Parks and Recreation is agreeable.
Sure
to
you would.
spending their money. I just, those are what those two add up. I don't know why there's a difference there.
yeah, I don't either, unfortunately, and I apologize. But
I'll make a motion to authorize the 9125.
What was Spartan's number? I don't see that. I'm having trouble figuring it out. I see a couple
let's
numbers.
see. Total price is 6,000 square feet, or $6,000 for Vetter Park asphalt remove and replace, which seems a bit high,
That was just the repair.
right? And then
720, 1350.
still scrolling here. And then seal coating for
Discrepancy in
Holly
prices
Park.
here. That's,
Yeah, seal coating for Holly Park appears to be $2,000 alone. So we're a little higher with Spartan, it looks like. When you total everything up here. The geotextile, the undercuts, the remove and replacement of asphalt. I mean, you're at
I'm sorry, Sean, I didn't catch that before, but
yeah, no, that's all right. I did not either. But it looks like the Spartan price is about roughly, if my math was quick, about $1,000 more.
Was it?
Than the combined total that you're referencing of 9,100. To look at that again.
Yeah, they wanted 10,985. Is that right?
Is that what you come up with when you total it? Yeah. 10,985.
That's
So
what I
it's
see in the minutes.
about 1,800. Okay.
I'm reading that out of the Parks and Rec. Man.
What is their? That's a good point. I'm gonna scroll down here and see.
They note that the Spartan did the work last time.
The other motion is to recommend
7150.
71. So I don't know. I'll have to get clarification. Perhaps if we did them both, there's a discount to be had somewhere. We'll investigate it further. If your motion allows us to spend up to the 9125, or the supervisor to spend up to 9125, we'll
We'll have to sort this
reconcile
out.
this.
Make sure this
Yep.
is obviously.
It's an FYI, Sean. Those tracks need trimming. There's a tree down back here too that needs removing.
Okay.
So can we get a motion to not exceed $9,200?
My motion was for the 9125 if Parks and Recreation is agreeable to it.
Okay.
I don't have a problem.
Andrea?
I'll support that. Sorry, I was reading.
Okay, we'll support that.
Under discussion?
Discussion.
A&R is an extremely, they're both good companies, but A&R is a very good company. So.
Okay, so we have motion, we have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you.
Thank you, and I will sort that out.
Aaron, you're the first reading of Chapter 38, Article,
Article 4.
4 of Code of Ordinances.
Okay, so DPS has been reviewing some ordinances pertaining to some work that we've been doing with our Storm Asset Management and Wastewater Grant, commonly known as SAW grant through the state of Michigan. And these ordinances are mostly in relation to the fats, oil, and grease program that's desperately needed in the township, in the sewer system here. So the majority of these additions are pertaining to the fats, oil, and grease program. We also have in here a few clarifications pertaining to the way capital connection fees are used, and I guess clarifications in how they're allocated. The definition change from direct and indirect to capital connection fee and lateral benefit fee was something that came out of an ordinance review committee that I was a part of. Mr. Roman, Mr. Powell were a part of. So over the last couple of years, one thing that we found was that it's very difficult for us to explain direct, indirect fees, what the differences are. It's a very common point that causes confusion, and so we felt that a title change there would make it simpler to understand. So that's basically what's in here, and if you have any questions, I can answer those at this time.
There's a few little corrections that I saw. One of Section 38-451, Director amended as to read, and it would be the construction, operation, management, maintenance, repair, control, the sewer system of the township, whether owned by the township or operated under contract, may be under the control. It should be shall be under the control. There'll be a few other grammatical things that I can see, and I think Mr. Lilly has one or two of them also.
The one was clarified, the one, Rick, on 39-543 was just a question, and Aaron answered that today, but the other one was the 38-479, where it referred to the Pontiac Lake District again, and it kind of questioned why that was still in there, where all of the people that were involved in the original Pontiac Lake District were required to finance their capital fees and to hook up and finance. So anybody else that didn't do either one of those, in my opinion, should be treated as a normal customer if they were not part of the original district. So
I think
that's why we put that.
Yeah, I think the only thing that Aaron and a point he made was that SAD is still running.
Actually, I can answer a little bit of that. So Lisa and I talked about the Pontiac Lake District specifically. It's an SAD that is specifically spelled out in our ordinance because there were special requirements there, the way that SAD was created. It was unclear to us at this time how ordinance revisions pertaining to that would affect where they were in the financial thing with the bond payments and the repayment of the general fund. So we elected at this time to leave that alone, as the safest course of action would be to not change it at this point. These ordinance, I will also like to clarify that this document that you have was intended to be a red line, and Lisa and I spent quite a bit of time working on a streamlined red line document that we could present to you. Unfortunately, we are working on kind of getting into the 21st century a little bit around here. So I was unaware that Trish required this to be in the form of a PDF going to you. So a lot of the comments that were in here didn't make it to you. But I expect that, we'll send that out and kind of clarify.
Yeah, and this is, your first reading, so we have time to look at a few different things.
Rick, I'm still asking for that D to be reviewed, because again, if somebody that has not been a participant in a special assessment district for Pontiac Lake today comes in and wants to be connected, the original intent of the district is to finance their connections as well as their main. And if they paid neither one of those, they're to be treated like a regular customer today. And that's what, by leaving this in there, you're going to assume that they're part of the district and have paid some of those costs already when they really haven't. They were required by the district to pay finance connection fees and to hook up. These other people are not part of that anymore.
Well, so
And there's still people that need to be connected within that district.
Can I just ask, I just don't understand what your concern is. Section 38479,
Yep.
paragraph D.
Yep, paragraph D. Says that all structures in which sanitary sewage originates within the boundaries of the Pontiac Lake Sewer District shall be connected to available public sanitary sewer. This connection shall be completed promptly, but not later than 90 days after the township sends written notice to the property owner. I don't want it construed as the fact, because they were part of the original district, that they paid their fees, when in fact those people have never paid any of the connection fees or their other fees, and today those people are to be treated like a normal customer.
I
They
don't-
pay a direct charge,
Terry, though, I
and
don't
they
see-
pay a connection fee.
I don't see anything that reflects it, says anything was paid.
Can I answer that real quick?
That's the way I'm reading it.
The expiration date on that connection requirement for the Pontiac Lake District, I believe, is passed.
These people are not part of that district.
Correct. There are lot
There
splits.
people are in the district that haven't paid in full yet. Those are a separate entity than what this says.
Correct. There are lot splits in that district now that are not that don't currently have structures on them that are not connected.
If they're
Now,
not-
those structures have available sewer by the 200-foot rule, by the definition of available sewer, and would be required to connect. But the original agreement in the SAD for the Pontiac Lake Sewer District is currently expired. That connection agreement had a timeline that was associated with it, and I believe that is passed.
That timeline has no effect on this paragraph here.
But the Pontiac Lake Sewer District is defined.
If they are currently within the district and they have never participated in financing their main, and they've never financed their connection fee, which all of those people were required to do right from the very beginning. And these people are within the district, but they haven't connected today, they're to be treated as a regular customer. They're no longer part of the Pontiac Lake District.
Does this paragraph say that they don't have to pay?
It says they're part of the district, and I would argue the fact, if you want me to be part of the district, that I probably paid.
And my assumption is this paragraph,
Pontiac Lake District should not even be in that paragraph. That's my argument.
I'd also like to point out that this paragraph is unchanged from the ordinance. This was existing language.
I'm just saying that the Pontiac Lake District is well over with.
Yes.
Those people that were original participants in the district, other than they're currently paying for connection fees, the district is done. It was done when it started, basically. It's alive because they're currently paying debt requirements, but those people that were never hooked up are not part of the district anymore.
Terry, my interpretation of this paragraph is that these people, if they hook up, they still have to pay connection fees. I think you're misinterpreting it.
I think what Terry's really getting at here is kind of along the same lines as what Lisa and I discovered when we, were
So
asking
what do you
ourselves
charge them?
whether
What,
we could
are you
remove
going to
this or
charge
not.
them what the district, the Pontiac Lake
Nope,
District
that
charges? Or are you going
nope,
to charge
that
them
district's
today's
closed.
cost?
They're going to pay Today's connection fees, like everyone else does.
I'm gonna argue just like you do. It's the way you read it.
But did you look at the definition, though, of Pontiac Lake Sewer
Yep.
District? It's limited to the special assessment role that was confirmed by the township in November 2002.
That's right, and that's, why is that in there then? That, those people that haven't connected to date are not part of the district anymore.
But some of these people in this district have not yet paid.
They haven't paid. In order to be part of the Pontiac Lake District, you had to finance your connection charges, and you had to finance your capital charges. That was part of the district requirements. After that,
It
they're
says within
done.
the boundaries of the district.
That was what the district entailed. Now, if you're in that district and you haven't paid any of those, then you're not part of the Pontiac Lake District anymore.
But my understanding is the role that was confirmed has still outstanding debt, and there are people still paying on it.
That is true.
Correct.
So
There's
so
people that are
Aaron and
within the
I,
district that haven't paid at all.
so Aaron and I discussed. I think everyone at this table agrees that the sewer ordinance needs a complete overhaul. But that is not something that can be done in a matter of weeks or months, or frankly, it hasn't been done in years.
My objection
And so
is
the-
not to remove the Pontiac Lake District from the thing, to redo the whole thing. My issue is to remove Pontiac Lake District from this item D here. It has no effect on.
Lisa, what did you say the definition of the district was? The people on the roll? And Terry, you're referring
Yeah,
to the
there's
district
people that
as
are not
like
on the
a
roll that
physical
are within the
boundary?
district. Absolutely.
You're talking about a physical boundary. She's just talking about the people on the roll. So it's two different definitions of the district.
That's correct. But the definition of the Pontiac Lake Sewer
We could
District is
certainly
within
revisit
another
this.
section of this. This does not
This is
apply to
exactly
those.
why we left it
Yeah,
alone.
well, that's fine.
It's
It's
very
so
unclear.
reading.
Just to continue what I was
What's in
saying,
my
I mean,
opinion?
the intent wasn't to do the complete overall right now. The intent was to do the fix-it pieces that Aaron felt was really necessary. And things that were questionable, we decided we'd leave that for when we do a complete overhaul. And there was no need to kind of go through the entire ordinance, because there's a lot of stuff in the ordinance, frankly, that needs to be changed.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you wanted to remove this paragraph, I think the rest of the ordinance covers us,
Yeah, I agree with you.
right? So,
Is that what you want, Terry? You want it removed?
I don't care. I'm going to voice my opinion, and
What if we define the districts differently?
I'm just trying to explain to the board, because everybody knows everything that happened 20 years ago. Everybody knows what happened 20 years
all
ago.
this does is restate
It's
what our
different
ordinance
today.
already says.
So,
This is not, there is no change here.
I would say we just,
It's as is.
excuse me,
Now, we can, go ahead.
excuse me. I'm gonna suggest this will just be part of this first reading. We continue on. We'll take another look at some of this stuff, and eventually, as we go through the processes, as Lisa said, this is gonna be a lengthy process to go through it and revise the entire ordinance in its entirety. So I think the changes you've done are good. I'm not gonna worry about some of the smaller things there, because I believe other things will, as we go through this, will be remedied, so to speak. So,
Just so we're clear, we did talk about removing this Pontiac Lake stuff from the ordinance, as I felt that it doesn't really make sense to have it in there anymore, as the SAD is now expired. So the definition of the district is not a boundary area, so to speak. It is the actual SAD. So, yeah, we can work on this and, during
Okay.
the second meeting. So we will have, this is the first reading. There will be a fee ordinance revision that will go along with this. Just we know that I am waiting on the meter contract that we have with Oakland County, with Ferguson through Oakland County Cooperative Purchase Program, expires on the 31st of this month. So I don't want to, I didn't want to bring a fee ordinance revision here and then have to change it again in a month from now. So our intention is this will be the first reading of this now. We'll have the first reading of the fee ordinance next month, and then the second reading of both the following month if the board agrees.
okay. So we'll just keep working at this and keep picking away at it. Again, it's first reading, so subject to scrutiny and tweaking, so to speak.
Yep.
Mr. Powell.
I had a good conversation with Aaron today. I have 10 items that are technical in nature that I don't want to go over tonight.
I don't want you to go over.
And so I'd like to obviously work with Aaron on addressing those in the next month as well.
And that's why we'll go forward with this, Terry. We'll address.
As long as
each
my
one of these.
comments are part of the record. That's
Yep. No, that's fine. Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, looking for a motion to move to second reading?
Motion to move the sewer ordinance 22 to second reading.
Chapter 38.
Chapter 38.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion to move the second reading. Looking for support?
Support.
I have motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, there we go. Old business, dangerous buildings, Gale Island.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Brent.
There are 5 properties out on Gale Island that were declared dangerous by White Lake Township. Back in June, the Township Board kind of had the demolition contractor hold off for 30 days so that maybe a real estate transaction might have transpired out there. To date, we have not heard anything with regards to that. So we're back in front of the board to move forward and get direction on the dangerous properties out on Gale Island.
Okay, very good. So at this point, I believe we've kind of gone over this many, many times. So my understanding of you is to get direction from the board to move forward to make sure that indeed the interest of the township is secured and that we move forward with the process.
Correct.
That's what you're looking for. So indeed, we'll make sure the township's interest is secured and we'll go forward. So we'll probably review some of the documents again or whatever we have to look at just to double check everything. Make sure everything is according to Hoyle, so to speak. So any questions from the board?
I support moving forward.
Okay. Anything else?
I know the township attorney has some questions, so your statement to her just now said that we're going to move forward, recommend moving forward, subject to making sure the
Our
proper
interests are
legal
protected.
issues are resolved.
Correct. Exactly. Yes?
Do you want a motion for the supervisor to work with township attorney to
Well,
move forward?
My work is done. As you know, I've provided the township board with attorney-client privileged communication so that you had that in your wealth of knowledge in making a decision. As you know, with everything lawyers do, we have to point out any concerns that we have, which we do, and then the township board needs to make their decision based on that. There really isn't, the only thing we would do at this point, if we were to do any further work, would ask for another updated title commitment right before the work is done to make sure that property interests haven't transferred from the last time we got an update. That would really be the only thing at this point that you'd be waiting from me.
Okay.
How long does that normally take?
It's a matter of days. Once you get the title search, then you just ask them to do just an update, and they'll just do a quick search to make sure that there's nothing on record that has changed.
And I will remind the board, we did approve the contract amount.
We did, yes.
So the wheels are in motion, and it was just a matter of trying to see, to give the property owner an opportunity to resolve something. Yes, sir.
The only question that I asked before, Mr. Franklin was in our offices a week or so ago, and I just kind of questioned and I asked Brent about, was there any conversation with Mr. Franklin in regards to his properties or his intentions? Obviously, he's received notice and he knows about it, but had he offered anything to the board when in the conversation?
He really did not. He was just not happy. I'll leave it at that.
I personally never spoke with him.
Okay. I know he was in the offices. I assume that he came in here probably.
He came in, he talked to some of the staff, and he just made it known he just wasn't real happy. He never pursued talking to anyone else. There was conversations between adjacent landowners and him trying to work out some sort of agreement, and apparently that has fallen apart.
Okay.
I have a question for council. So exactly when in the timeline should that title work be rerun?
Right
just
before you do.
before, well, so we award the contract? It's
You've
already
al-
been awarded,
Yeah,
hasn't
you've
it?
already.
Oh, yeah,
That's been
he's,
awarded, yeah.
So you ask him to prepare, and once we get a date of tear down, maybe 2-3 days before,
Yeah.
we would need to run.
You know, normally you don't. Normally, I wouldn't say to be that cautious, but because there was discussions here about purchase, I'd hate to miss it on a day or two. So, yeah.
Understandable.
Well, I'll put that in the form of a motion if I can, to move forward with the dangerous building Gale Island tear downs and to have title work rerun 3 days prior to the beginning of demolition.
Have a motion, looking for support.
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. Okay. Item number 10B is back before us. It's been some time. It's dangerous building 1111 Round Lake Road.
this is,
Mr. Lloyd? I'm sorry. Right.
this is another dangerous building, and it is correct to be under old business. The owners of the property are here. The reason is before you again today. There was board action taken by the board back in October of 2016. Since that date, the present owners have been in compliance with the township board order. Recently, the township ordinance officer, Jason Hudson, has received a number of complaints from some of the neighbors over there about the condition and shape of the building, and that's why it's back in front of the board tonight to, give me some more direction on which way to go with this, building out there on Round Lake Road.
Well, that particular building, I've driven past it as of late, and it needs some attention. That's an understatement. I believe that we allowed them to do certain things to secure the building at the time with some lighting and other things that were done. What was necessary to meet Mr. Holland's, Inspector Holland's requirements of the township. It has been some time. That building has been empty now since 2013.
Correct.
No. Oh, maybe when we bought it was 2015.
It's been empty since 2013, so it's 5.
I found out today that Mr. Ron's went out of business in 2013 and the property was vacated sometime in 2013. These folks here purchased the property near the end of 2015, just as we were getting started with the dangerous building process. And since they were new owners of the property, the township board at the time granted them some time to, remove it from the requirements of the dangerous building and put it up for sale to hopefully, get a prospective buyer in there that would maybe fix it up.
Okay. Well, I believe the township's been more than patient in trying to, work with it. And I know that there are some concerns from neighbors of the myriad of things. That it is an eyesore. I believe there's also some structural issues with it. I know there's some concerns that some people have about that. It's not good to have buildings like that sitting there. And so it is something we need to talk about. Are you going to represent her, or, okay. Identify.
My name is Jay Smirtka. Real brief, and I'm not going to be in any kind of a confrontation or anything like that. I just want to. I've been asked by the current property owners if I could help them out a little bit. I have no background in building or construction or any of that. Basically, when they've asked me, they said they got this letter dated July 31st of this year from Mr. Hudson, and you may have that in your package here, but it's saying I'm writing to advise you that the above described property is currently in violation of White Lake Township ordinances. Okay, my first question is, what violation? I asked the property owners, have anyone from White Lake Township told you what's wrong? No. And the second paragraph goes on to say that they're going to recommend going to a dangerous building. Now, I've been to the building several times. In fact, as is mentioned, it is up for sale. I've been asked to at least provide access to a potential buyer so he can look at the place. And I did notice on the very front of the building, somebody posted another letter from the township. This was dated back in 2016, which you're probably talking about, how somebody thought it was a dangerous building, but they never said anything. What was the problem? I got this from the internet. This is your township's ordinances on dangerous building. Wouldn't you think that you would let them know what the problem is? Because, I mean, a door, aisle, passageway, stairway, or other means of exit does not conform. Well, the building is under lock and key. There's nobody going in there. If it was an active supermarket and this was a problem, okay, I could say it's dangerous, but there's nobody goes in there. There's a gate that's under a padlock. I'm going to be the first to agree with you that it's not pretty, but I've lived in that area for over 30 years. When Mr. Ron's had it, it wasn't the most beautiful building of White Lake Township then either. They pay to have the grass cut and the vegetation trimmed. The vegetation isn't any more overgrown than the next property over. They're willing to do whatever is required to keep the property in as decent a condition as reasonably required until the property is sold. They have an offer on the table. They used it through the realtor. They went and responded. Who knows where that is? But I'm just wondering if you have, not you folks on the board, but if the ordinance officer or somebody has specifics they want to have addressed. Can you let them know?
Well, I believe the building official has a few things that.
Okay, I know that the people, one of the people that I did show the building to, and this may be all totally baloney, but apparently he has a background in construction. He knows what he's looking at, and one of his big concerns when he walked in the building is the roof. But on the inside, some of the old ceiling panels were not there, so he was able to take a big blight. And he says the roof's in great shape. Granted, you're going to take the old tile down or do something. If you wanted to revamp the building, you have to gut it. But as far as there's nothing going to cave in, So, anyways, everyone the property owners want to work with the township, but they would like to find out what the township wants them to do.
What's on your list? I know you said it meets some of the criteria for the dangerous building hearings.
The township dangerous building has 10 things that are the criteria for a dangerous building, and all that was gone through back in 2016 during the dangerous building. The reprieve that the township board gave them was to, if I can remember right back at the meeting, was to allow them to board up the building and make it safe to a point where it was safe on the outside and they could put it up for sale. Personally, myself, I've not been in the building in 2 years. Jason Hudson has responded to a number of complaints over the last year or so. The main reason that my recommendation was to come in front of the board tonight was to just seek direction from the board on which direction to go with this building. The building does currently not meet 4 of the 10 items. Most of them deal with the nonconformity and the vacant portion of it, along with the board up and some items like that.
If I may clarify, on the April 2016 letter, it said that citing items 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 of the ordinance were not in conformance, so that's 6. So now you said 4. So what 2 things are corrected?
I'd have to refresh my memory with that.
I got it here if you want.
No, I think the items that you're referring to were items from the dangerous hearing officer.
Yes.
They're not those items in the dangerous building ordinance. The dangerous hearing officer at the time.
Okay.
This is of the ordinance.
Hang on. I'm not going to get into all the nuts and bolts of it. The bottom line is that you're seeking direction from the board.
Correct.
Okay. And the direction I would like to give you, and I think the board will probably agree or consider agreeing is to go back out, refresh your process, and come back to the board with a full report as to where the building is in its current status. It means you should have cooperative access by the building owners, and we can move on forward from there, and then we can go to the next level without going through all the little nuances of all these little things. Yes, please.
So the township has an arsenal of ordinances that could come into play. I know that 2 years ago you went through the dangerous building process, and at the time you determined it was a dangerous building, but then you backpedaled because they've done some repairs and you determined it was no longer dangerous building. And the township board agreed with you.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, at this point, you start all over. You look at all the township ordinances, and if it is in fact a dangerous building under the dangerous building process, I feel at this point it's appropriate to start that process from scratch, since you've made a determination that they were compliant at one point. But I think personally, if it's more of a junk and debris issue and not so much a dangerous building issue, then the ordinance enforcement officer should get involved and look at the property maintenance code and try to seek compliance that way, perhaps simultaneously to you running through your process for dangerous building. But I think that maybe the two of you can sit down with the supervisor and formulate a plan.
We'll form a course. Okay. All right. That's
all that's here for, and then I've got direction.
That's the direction. Okay. All right. Yes, sir.
I also agree. I was going to suggest that you walk the property with the owner, start over, and figure out where you're at now.
Figure out course of action. Okay. All right. I guess that's pretty much the direction.
Can I ask a question
Yes,
about the owner?
ma'am, dear.
May I ask a question of you, ma'am? Would you like to live next to that building?
I mean, what can
Is
I
it yes
do?
or no question in my book?
Yeah, I
Okay.
would like. I'm living there. I have a store right there on Gully Lake Road.
Okay.
And township, White Lake Township, it's my town. I want to keep it clean and, secure, and I don't want nobody getting hurt there either. I
Thank you.
have insurance. I've been
You don't need a
spending a lot
motion,
of
do
money
you?
on that.
No.
But I want to keep it secure and,
Okay. All right.
I just want to clarify real quick, just for the record, Amy, what I was reading for was October 7th, 2016, not April.
Thank you. Okay, you've got your direction.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I know we have extended this time period a number of times, and we've had a lot of complaints from the neighbors in the area. Is there some other way that the township can pursue as far as a legal agreement, such as a consent judgment or something, to clearly define the area's responsibilities, and if they don't happen, then they can be taken to court? Instead of just the board keep extending the time period?
Well, absolutely, but I don't think the board is extending the time period. I think what they're,
We just extended it,
Yeah.
sounds like.
for this one?
Yeah.
No, there's nothing pending. There's nothing pending on dangerous buildings right now because it was closed out 2 years ago. What he's saying now is he wants direction going forward from the conditions sitting here today.
So we're gonna do it over again.
Well, but you don't have to just do dangerous building. You could do property maintenance code. You could do, there's so many ordinances that could come into play, and you could take them to district court, which is a lot quicker. At the same time, running through dangerous building, if that's what is appropriate.
Is there some other way to negotiate that agreement as far as a legal binding agreement rather than going back through dangerous building?
Well, if a ticket is written under the property maintenance code, it can be handled in district court. If the township wants to authorize me to file a complaint in circuit court, we can ultimately enter into a consent judgment, but you can't have a consent judgment without a circuit court action. So,
That's required.
I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go about it, but
I just don't like going through the dangerous building hearing process again. Gonna take time. Then it's gotta come back before the board again, time. And then we're gonna have the argument that the homeowner doesn't understand what they should have done. There's gonna be more time. This has taken up a lot of the board's time in the last 2 years that something needs to be done. They need to be clearly defined what they're gonna do and held accountable if they don't do it.
It would be nice to have a plan of action, but I believe we do need to let Brent run his course and do what he needs to do. And I'll work with him and Jason to see what it is, the direction we're gonna go in. Okay? All right. We're good. You know what you need to do. Okay? Anything else, Terry? No? Okay. Item 10C, well and pump maintenance report. Aaron?
Was that the decision of the board that we're gonna go through dangerous building?
Yeah, we're just gonna,
I didn't
he
hear a
needed
motion.
his
There is
direction.
no decision. He just wanted direction and
Just
he
wanted
got the
direction.
direction.
Hello, Aaron.
Hello again.
Sir.
Okay, so back in February, during the township board meeting, the township board authorized us to enter into an agreement with Peerless Midwest for repair and maintenance of our township municipal water supply wells. And part of that was the township board requested that I come back to the board with a report of our activities. And so that's why I'm here now. We have completed our well work for this season. I am a little bit embarrassed that I had a mathematical error on the total on my memo. It's actually $49,993, not what I wrote there. So this included the pulling and essentially major overhaul of Village Acres Well 1, the pulling and cleaning, chemical cleaning of Village Acres Well 2, and as well as the performance pump and well tests for the rest of the township wells. And the total on this, as I said, was just under $50,000. And we're happy to say that all those wells are currently producing at or better than their original permitted capacity. And we intend to have 2 wells probably overhauled next season.
Very good.
So if anybody has any questions on the paperwork that I submitted to you, I would answer those at this time.
No, it looks very thorough, except for your little mathematical error there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry. Any questions from the board? This time?
Thank you for the report.
Yes, thanks for the report.
We need a motion to pay Peerless, or?
We need a motion to approve this. This has already been.
No, they've already been paid.
That's what I thought. Okay, this is just our report. Time goes by. Can't remember everything. I appreciate that. That's good. And also then, if you're set with that, I'll move on to item D, which is our PFAS monitoring report, which came back to us, and I'm going to let you tell them about it.
So PFAS is an emerging contaminant that is mostly related to firefighting foams. They're finding it as toxic and extremely prevalent in the environment. It's extremely water soluble and lasts in the environment for a very long time. It has an extremely long life after it's been released into the waters of the state. And so the state of Michigan MDEQ, actually, Mr. Supervisor and I were at the House chambers when they passed some.
Just by sheer coincidence.
Yeah, some rulings on some PFAS sampling. So the state of Michigan started an initiative to sample municipal well systems and to determine how prevalent this is in the environment so that they could eventually work out some kind of maximum contaminant level and the regulation that needs to be put into place to control this. And so I'm happy to say that we have completed that sampling. The state sent out a lab tech. There's only a couple of labs in the country that can do this sampling. And we found no PFAS or perfluoral alkalines in any of our township municipal wells. And I just thought that I'd like to bring that information to the board because it's good news for White Lake and good news for the people that drink our water here.
Thank you. Seeing as it's now, like you say, an emerging problem, and we're seeing it pop up in multiple places throughout the state, and I believe there's a municipality outside of Kalamazoo
Yep.
Their municipal system is contaminated.
Correct.
So now they're scrambling to get a new water source.
You know, they're scrambling to come up with a treatment process for something that is, you know, very little is known about it at this time. They're kind of on the front end of the regulation that's going to be coming forward. Along with this, White Lake Township Fire Department approached me with they've been doing an inventory of all the older firefighting foams that they have in their inventory. And there were a few that we found that did contain some of these types of chemicals. However, through some further research, it was determined that those companies that they purchased those through were fortunately on the leading edge of the PFAS. You know, I guess the investigation there, and so they have switched over to some non-toxic alternatives, and so at this time we don't know of any toxic PFAS firefighting foams in the township inventory.
Very good. Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay. Thank you very much for the reports. Appreciate it very much. Moving on to item 10E, extend terms of training and recruitment officer contract.
I'll start.
Go
Excuse me, because I do not have the contract with me. It was executed by the township with Mr. Holland, but
It's in the packet.
Oh, okay.
Do you want my copy?
Yeah.
Or you can take his.
So this agreement was signed the 17th day of April, 2018.
I didn't find it.
And it was an at-will agreement. And I believe the township gave the supervisor the right to keep Mr. Holland on through, I believe it was July 31st.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. In the meantime, I sent in an extension request for the SAFER grant because we still had, I think it was over $30,000 that we hadn't used of the grant money, and that was approved. So that allows us to pay for Mr. Holland's salary and benefits up through October 3rd. When the board talked last time about what we thought we wanted to do, we were all in agreement to give the fire chief 90 days past the day, I think, of the previous grant termination date to figure out what and how he was going to move forward. At this time, we've applied for another SAFER grant to pay for the recruiter, Mr. Holland, and so we're guessing that we'll hear back from that right around year end. It's my thought that we allow Mr. Holland to stay on through year end. That would be basically the same thing we did before, giving the fire chief about 90 days from the new grant extension that ends on October 3rd. So that's just my thought.
Any comments from the board? Mr. Lilly.
Mr. Supervisor, when we hired this individual, we said that we would hire him under the grant, terms of the grant, the money of the grant. We discussed this 2 months ago, I think, when we extended the first opportunity for the fire department to pursue an additional grant that would pick up from where that one ended and whatever. The information seems to be a little bit conflicting. Mike says 30,000. The last accounting I had was about 11,000. and we're spending about
Well, I
eight
can-
thousand a
that's a
month.
different-
I can clarify that.
different timeline.
The 11,000 is probably as of now. The 30,000 was when the
Okay.
previous grant
But if
originally
we're talking
terminated.
about right now, it's probably about a month and a half from now of salary. And as I indicated before, if we're going to start hiring people and paying them out of the general fund, it's been a topic of discussion for a long time that we need to start hiring full-time firefighters to man Station 3. And I'm opposed to the extension of time anything longer than what the current grant proceeds will take care of.
Well, currently it looks as though it'll go through on or about October 3rd, 2018.
Rick, I'm not suggesting we use general fund money. I'm
Correct.
suggesting we use fire money.
Correct, yeah.
So just to clarify.
Right, it would be fire money.
Well, it depends on what money he thinks he has to spend. He has an operating budget and he has O4M money, but that money is not to be used for purposes other than new firefighters, so. Like I say, we get in this situation every time a grant comes up and we hire somebody like this. It's not just the grant, they want more and then extension of time and whatever. The time's up. When the money runs out, the kitty's dry.
I agree with that in concept. What concerns me is that if we release him and he is gone and we acquire this grant, we're gonna run into a hole in the process for a transition, whatever it may be. I would be more inclined to go back to what we originally talked about, which was to extend it for 90 days. In this case, it would take it
January 3rd. I would
thereabouts,
just say, I would
end of the
just
year.
say December 31st.
And if we don't know about the grant by then, I don't think we're ever gonna know about the grant by then. And
Nobody's even discussed the fact that whether the process of the grant itself and what was to be accomplished by the grant has been accomplished. We don't even talk about that.
there is some lack of information, absolutely. You are correct.
Whatever the lack of information or the additional information, it needs to come out on the table.
But Chief
And it
Gurka
needs to
came
be
and gave a
discussed.
report.
I beg your pardon?
Chief Gurka came and gave a report on this.
He gave a synopsis of it, you know. I would have liked a little more detail myself.
He gave us the opportunity to ask questions that night.
That's true, that's true. However, I think at this time, I'm reluctant to just directly terminate this at this point. I think I would like to go back to what the board originally talked about. If we have the monies through October, I'm using the date of October 3rd only because it's on this grant document, that we consider going to the end of the year, and this will allow us time or allow the chief time for transition in the event that he does not acquire the grant, to figure out how he's going to have these duties put on different personnel within the department.
I thought that's what he got 90 days for. Is that what we told him last time?
Yeah, that's what we give them time last time for.
Initially, but that was pre this 90-day, pre-extension of the grant that Mike was able to procure.
Well, Rick, you bring up a good point. If we terminate him now, and you get the grant approved, chances are you're not going to get him back, and you lose all that knowledge base that he's gained from being here for the last 4 years. So,
Well, that's why I think we didn't need to discuss the intent of what needed to be accomplished and see if it got accomplished. And I don't think it needs to be a secret either.
Well, I know the chief did present some of the things that he's doing, and there has been a lot of conversation with different.
A lot of stuff gets presented, but it doesn't get to where it needs to get, and that's to the rest of the board for us to discuss the situation.
He did do it at a public hearing, a public meeting that we were at, so.
The information needs to be brought to everybody else.
Comments, questions, other members?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think we've spoke on this topic a number of times. I think I've said every time, right from the very beginning of the grant, that I suspected this is what they would want to do, but I don't know, I echo Terry's sentiment. Yeah, I think I would rather have a full-time firefighter. We're hiring one now, I'd rather see 3 of them hired, you know. Why is Station 3 not manned? Why is none of these things happening? You know, we're painting buildings, we're fixing parking lots. There's nobody at 3. We're losing good firemen. We just lost one for a number of reasons, and you know, I would rather see some full-time guys. That's my opinion on the matter.
Mr. Powell.
If we're just hiring someone to fill a chair and they're not really accomplishing the goals that this township has set forth, then whether we have the money through a grant or not, if it's not assisting us in our end goal, then it's probably not worth it. So I guess that's a question that really only the chief can answer. But I believe this board has asked the chief to come up with some means and a plan to be able to man Station 3, and we've not seen that yet.
No, that is true. Absolutely.
And Terry has a point. You know, what was his goal, and have we accomplished it? You know, the paid on calls. What's their involvement? You know, how many of them are responding? You know, these are things I'd like to know.
The information that we have to see whether we're servicing our public properly. Right. Understood. Very well.
So can we formally request of Chief Gurka to report back to us next month?
Well,
Questions
absolutely.
we have, and then go from there.
We have until next month to make a decision as to what we need to do.
It's a great idea.
That would be the drop dead date for the next meeting, which is 18th, September
18th.
September 18th.
I don't have an issue with that.
Well, from hearing everything that the board said, would it make sense to make a motion to allow the supervisor to keep him on through October 3rd, or when the grant money runs out, whichever is earlier?
Whichever's first.
So I'll make that motion. I need support.
I'll support you.
We have a motion, we have support, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Okay.
I think we're all getting tired.
Yeah, we are. I'll make this real short and sweet. Item 11, FYI Civic Center Development Committee appointments. I am in the process of compiling a list of 9 individuals that are going to be serving on the Civic Center Development Committee, which will be a consulting committee to the Township Board. It will be made up of a cross-section of individuals. I was prepared to announce those individuals tonight. However, there has been a change of a few of them have told me they're now rethinking they are snowbirds, so they won't be able to give us the dedication. They're very flattered I offered them the positions, but they're not going to be able to fulfill their obligation. So as soon as I have that list put together in its entirety and all the folks accepted, I will notify all of the board members, and I will post it on our Facebook page so everybody knows. And this group will work with the planning department in going forward and going into the next step of the actual development of our Civic Center district. And that's pretty much it.
Mr. Supervisor, can that be given to us as a board before that's announced?
Yes.
There's no information in our board packet to that.
No, there isn't any because I didn't compile a list yet, and I'm not going to release it until I have it all people confirmed they'll be there. So once I have that done, I will do that. So at this point, I will go to trustee comments. Andrea Voorhees.
Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce is having a public forum on September 25th. Susan, help me out with this. It's a Tuesday, and what time?
It's at 8 a.m.
8 a.m.
Quality Inn in Waterford. It seems that our township has a lot of concerns and energy and thoughts around road care within our community. So I would encourage and invite any and all residents or local commerce to feel free to come. Cost $5 by pre-registration. I will send that information to the township tomorrow so that it can be passed on to the residents. Oakland County is being brought in The per se experts at Oakland County will be there to be able to field any and all questions as it relates to road plans, commitments of finances, and how both of those decisions are made within our community from Road Commission of Oakland County.
Thank you, Susan. I just only had the basic details, so I wanted to give her more kudos. I'd like to thank the wonderful voters of White Lake for supporting the library, the police, and the fire millages. It was a nice, refreshing to see the election results on the 7th at like 9:05 that they all passed. My same plea every year. Fisk Farm is September 8th and 9th. We can always use some support in the food area and in throughout the festival. So if anyone wants to help, especially the wonderful elected officials up here on this board, I'm giving you some adult peer pressure. I was able to attend a concert in the park sponsored by the library. Really nice evening. I just sat back and enjoyed all the music from the 60s, if I'm thinking properly.
Wow, you're not old enough to remember that.
And I even downloaded a couple onto my playlist. That's how much I enjoyed it. And lastly, and I generally don't do this, but I want to celebrate Liz's birthday. She had her 25th birthday again this past Sunday, so happy birthday, Liz.
Thanks, Andrea. That was sweet of you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Do we sing?
Yes. No.
Only an executive session, so it's not recorded.
Perfect. Snacks for executive.
Not on the agenda.
I appreciate it.
That's a good
That's
point.
sweet.
Thank you. All right. Are you all set, Andrea?
Yes, I'm all set. Thank you.
Ms. Smith, birthday girl.
All right. So just I'd like to start out for a matter of housekeeping, just as a courtesy to my colleagues that when we all come together as a board, together we have an equal vote and we all need equal information. So I just want to remind everybody of that here on the board. I'd like to congratulate our police, fire, and library on successful millage renewals. Our next library board meeting is tomorrow, Wednesday, 8/22 at 6:45 p.m. We have an open competitive examination for a firefighter. Applications are due 8/27 at 4 p.m. Additional information can be found in the clerk's office. I encourage you all to sign up for the 4th annual Police Department Donut Dash 5K. You don't have to run. It's fun just to show up. And you can walk it if you'd like. It's on September 8th. You can sign up online or in person at the police department, and it's $25. Also, Citizens Academy is starting in September on Thursday nights. It's free to attend. As a Citizens Academy alumni, I highly recommend it. It's so much fun, and you learn a lot about our township and build a good relationship with our police department as well. You can sign up at whitelakepolice.com. As Andrea mentioned, the Fisk Farm Festival is coming up September 8th and 9th, and they always need volunteers. So you can contact Andrea, Barb, the Historical Society. There's many ways to get involved. And lastly, sadly, summer is coming to an end, and I want to wish all of our students and families a successful and safe school year. And I want to thank each and every resident for attending tonight. I know it's a long night as I look around. My colleagues are super tired looking, so we're hanging in there. And thanks for hanging in there with us. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Lilly.
Well, a good one on me. Rick, I just want to say that you've taken some heat from a few of our residents in regards to the road issue lately, and I've always supported your efforts for what's going on right now. Obviously, the residents don't realize behind the scenes that at least the informational meetings that are going on and what it really takes to get an improvement done, but I support you in that. So one of my requests is I've tonight sat through the meeting, and we've had 3 of our in-house people that have been on the agenda down at the bottom, and I'd like to request to maybe from now on, after the minutes of the meeting, that we create a new section there for departmental requests, so that our department heads aren't sitting here.
Move them up a little bit on the scale. Yeah.
Do that. Obviously, this is really the township board's meeting, and we need to make sure that those requests are taken care of promptly and get our business done. In your information, all of you have tonight is a library expense report couple changes that have happened since your last report. If you go to the very top of that, the long sheet, you'll notice, and if you're going to compare that to last month's submittal, that the contractual obligation for McCarthy and Smith has changed, it's increased really for two reasons. There was an additional purchase of some insurance that increased McCarthy and Smith's contract, as well as there was another item that was listed on the left-hand portion of your page that we moved into their contractual obligation rather than general do it. But at the bottom is really where you notice the difference between what the library report probably reads and what our financial reporting is, and that's right at the bottom on the right-hand side. That it appears right now that there's about a $366,000 difference in our accounting compared to what the library is. But the library budget, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, indicates that right now their general fund contribution to additional funding of the bonds would be $281,032. They've kind of anticipated that they would receive about $35,000 in interest earnings over the period of the bond, and also their general fund is going to have to absorb another $50,000 of money if the current contractual obligations all remain the same. So just to bring you up to date, that all of the numbers should be exactly the same as the library's accounting, other than we are accounting from the standpoint of what cash we have actually received deficient of the funds that they anticipate putting in later. So that takes care of that report. And the other one is kind of a comprehensive review of the election results that could be helpful to you in the future. You may want to look at those, how the different races panned out in regards to just the general votes as compared to the absentee voters. So it's got a lot of good information in it that can be useful later. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ruggles.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks to the voters for passing our millages. That was great. My wife and I brought the girls up here and voted. Saw the police department working hard. We got in and out really quick, so that was great. It's always a great experience to come out and vote. Utilize that opportunity to be heard. So thanks for that. And there were a lot of good points brought up today, and one is speed limit on those dirt roads. And I don't know if there's any way to get that lowered. Maybe the supervisors knows of some way, but it's way too fast. And 55, I don't even know if anybody even pays attention to it. Well, it's not even posted, right? So it's just wildness. But yeah, if there was some way to lower that, it would be beneficial to everybody. And I was able to get out for the police and fire golf outing. First time I've ever done that. Mr. Roman was there. I think Andrea was somewhere. I don't know if she was golfing though.
Hole in one, watching the hole in one.
Yeah. That was a great experience. So, yep, thanks.
Mr. Powell, reluctantly.
Very quickly, I wanted to thank the voters very much for their supporting the police and fire. Without those millages, we would have been in a world of hurt here in the township. So I want to thank my fellow residents personally, and congratulations to the library on the passing of their millage as well. That's it, Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Roman.
I also want to thank all the voters for coming out to the polls. We had record turnout for a primary election, so thank you. And then also congratulations to all those that are from the Grosse Pointe Woods area, and congratulations to the kids and the families that are on that Little League World Series team representing the Great Lakes. They're one of 4 teams left in the United States, so go team go.
Very good. Very good. The echo is here. You know, the voters came out in record numbers. I think Mr. Lilly deserves a lot of credit for his response to this. He's got a great crew in the clerk's office, and they were right on it. And he is correct. One individual took it very personally. I told her the next day, it's not your fault, not your fault. So it's just one of those flukes that happens, but it shows you when the process works and people come out. And that's what the most important thing is. And I'm anticipating what November is going to be like and how things are going to come out. And we're going to have the park and rec millage on November. It's worthy of looking at and seeing where that'll take us, and that'll help us move into the next next level that we're trying to do with the parks around the township and the different projects that we would like to do. It'd be nice to have that funding in place. Our police fire golf outing was great. It was successful. The White Lake Township Foundation did very well.
I didn't know the fire was
Well, they were there golfing, a couple of the guys. Anyways, he won a tractor, and that's really ticking me off. But that's another story.
I think it was my raffle ticket.
But that's another story. The police, I had to throw them in there, and the chief shouldn't have said that. But it's good to see everybody get together and support the police foundation, because it's something that really makes a difference in the community to a lot of individuals. And we had a foundation meeting the other day, and we had some members there, and there was some concerns about, maybe you guys are, if things are going to go along, what are you going to do when you have this money? And my remark was, you never have too much money in a foundation. No matter how much it is, it's never enough, because there's too many things that you can do in your community, and we have a lot of need. White Lake, we're very privileged to be here. We're very, very privileged to be here, but we still have persons in our community that need a little assistance every now and then. Not a way of life, but just kind of like a hand up, so to speak, to help them get going and pick up speed and move forward. So we're all very fortunate. So with that, I'll say that
I just had one quick
Yes,
question,
sir.
Rick.
Yes, sir.
Terry, I just wanted to know if Ted's cutting your lawn with that new lawnmower that he wanted.
I was really buzzing about that. All my tickets laid out, and the last guy wins that tractor.
Congratulations.
There you go. With that being said, I would like to
Have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to go into executive session, approval to recess into closed session and consult with its attorneys regarding a trial or settlement strategy in connection with Commerce Township versus White Lake Township, Huron Valley School District, Oakland County Circuit Court Case number 2016-155404-CK in accordance with MCL 15268E. What?
I was just wondering why there were so many conversations.
They're just
while you're
laughing. They're
making a
going on.
motion.
He supports it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Supported?
I support
I
him.
made a motion. I have support. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Roll call vote, Mr. Clerk.
Andrea?
Yes.
It's time
Mr.
I
Powell?
have to ask.
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Colwell?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly votes yes. Mr. Ruggles?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Mrs. Smith votes yes.
Okay. Approval to recess, item 13B, approval to recess and closed session to consult with its attorneys regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with the White Lake Township versus John Folkert and Marie Folkert, Oakland County Circuit Court case number 2018-164285-CZ in accordance with MCL 15.268E.
Support.
Motion and support. Roll call vote.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Ruggles?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly votes yes.
You're mixing
Mr.
it
Colwell?
up? Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Andrea Voorhees?
Yes.
To my chambers.